why don't you have her like introduce herself to you, who she is, and then just take it from there.
He's going to say, who are you? I don't know.
This was Meemaw at pre-Alzheimer's.
It might be. Might be, for sure.
To tell you the truth, I think I'm pre-Alzheimer's.
Okay, are we on?
Yeah. So tell us, what is your name?
My name is Mary Licata Ingracia.
Do you mind saying how old you are today?
I'm 80 years old.
Okay, why don't you, the fridge or something made a weird noise. Can you put those two things together? So say, introduce who you are. You know, I'm Mary Licata Gracia, and I'm 80 years old.
Okay.
Put 'em
But
together.
why don't you say, how about her birth date in there too? Her birthday?
Yeah, I was going to say I just turned 80 on August 13th.
Yeah, okay.
Should we give the date of this interview?
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yeah, and then I can put it up on the screen too. Okay, go ahead.
So you asked me who I am. I say, okay. Today is September 10th, 2013. And my grandson TJ wanted to interview me. So my name is Mary Licata Ingracia, and on August 13th, 2013, I turned 80 years old.
So I think one of the reasons TJ wanted to do this project is kind of for posterity. He's going to give it as a gift to everybody for Christmas. So I think people are going to love that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very beautiful because just like, 30 years from now, Mia can watch this
Mm-hmm.
and understand something of who was my great-grandma and what was her life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it'd be really neat if I had something like that about Nana,
Jeffrey has a ton of stuff where he interviewed Nana.
I remember that, yeah.
And he said he wanted, if I ever wanted to see it, he'd get it all out. So ask him.
I wonder if it's any good. It's probably
I
like
don't know.
VHS.
I do not know. I have no idea.
Right,
It's not like this interview.
right.
So
Is it possible, it's not like a huge deal, is it possible to lock the rocker?
no,
So-
but I won't rock.
Okay, yeah, if you could not rock, that, I think that'd be better.
Okay.
Okay. So what does it provoke in you to think that your great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren could watch this 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Well, I just hope they'll want to. It just might get lost by the wayside by then. I'm rocking again.
Yeah, that's-
So, do you have a sense of where to start with your story? I was thinking of asking you first about you and Dad. Could you just kind of share the story? How did you and Dad meet?
Well, we met through my cousin Tina Licata Gaccioni on a more or less a blind date. I was only 15 years old. He was 18. And my cousin Tina was supposed to take me to a movie because I had been staying here in St. Louis with my Aunt Lena for a few weeks because her husband was very ill in the hospital and she wanted me to come and stay with her. So my mom said, yeah, I could come and stay with her. So Tina knew I had only been going back and forth from Barnes Hospital to visit my uncle all the time, So she said, I'll take you to a movie. And in the meantime, this guy that she had been wanting to have a date with for a long time asked her out for that same night. So she called me, she says, I don't know what to do. She says, I promised you I would take you to the movie. But this guy, I don't know what his name was, asked me out, and I hate to say no because then he might not ask me out again. So I said, well, go ahead and go out with him. I said, you and I can go to a movie another night. That'll be okay. So she said, no, I just really feel bad about this. She said, should I get somebody for you to go out with? And I said, I'm not allowed to date. She says, well, I'll get somebody nice and we'll go on a double date. So she called your father, he was, like I say, was 18, and asked him if he would go on this date, you know. Well, just by chance, he had seen me one time at their farm. They had the peach orchard in DuQuoin, Illinois, my uncle, and Tina was his daughter, Sirocco, yeah. So it was peach season, and a whole bunch of the Ingracias had come down to visit Siroccans, because they were real close-knit. They knew them from Italy. And they came down to spend a day picking peaches.
They being Grandpa,
Grandpa,
Sam,
Grandma,
Cecilia,
yes.
they knew Sirocco.
Yes. And so they came, and so I was there because we always helped with the peaches. But he said he thought I was a 12-year-old kid. I don't think he even said hi to me that day, because I was there working with the peaches, and they were picking peaches and all kind of stuff. And so that's just a little background of when she asked him, you remember it was my cousin you saw at the farm that day when we were all there picking peaches. He said, I'm not going out with a 12-year-old kid. She said, she's not 12, she's 15, which there really isn't much difference. But he said, no, Tina, I don't want to. And she said, please, please, Angelo, do it as a favor to me. So he said, okay, I'll go. You know, he wasn't too thrilled about it. So I really had nothing to wear, so we had to raid my cousin Mary's closet, because she always had the nice clothes, to get me something to wear. And we went on the date, and we just really clicked, you know. I liked him, and he liked me, and he called the next day. And even my Aunt Lena didn't know about this. And I thought, oh my God, my mom's going to kill me if she ever finds out. But that was it. So.
If it was up to Nana, she probably wouldn't want you to date when you were 30.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Do you remember what the movie was that night?
We didn't go to a movie. We went to the Stardust room at the Chase Park Plaza, because this guy that dated Tina had some tickets to go there.
There was like a show, a singer, a band? Or?
No, it was, I don't know if they had food, because I can't remember that we ate. But they had drinks, you know, drinks and dancing. It was a Starlight room. When you danced, I don't know if they turned ceiling stuff on and it looked like you were dancing under the stars, you know. So.
Did you dance?
I really should not have been in there at my age, probably. Could have got arrested.
Did you dance?
You know, I don't even remember. I think we might have. I don't know.
So he called you the next day and said, well,
Yeah.
can we go on another date?
Yeah, he says, yeah, can we go on another date? And I said, well, I don't know. And I think on the second date we went on the Admiral with Tina. And I don't know if that guy was the same guy or a different guy she got. I don't remember. That's been, what, 70 years ago? 65?
65, yeah.
65 years ago. Can't remember at all. So
how did it unfold from there? How
Here,
long?
hang on 1 second. I'm going to stop that. Okay. Proceed.
So how old were you when you and Dad got married?
19.
You were 19.
I had just turned 19 in August, and we got married on October 11th. So I was just barely 19.
So
And he was
22.
just barely 22.
Okay, I'm going to stop you and start that over. And you probably wouldn't normally do this in conversation, but since we're not necessarily going to see him all the time, when he asks you a question, try to rephrase the question and the answer. So when he says, how old were you when you got married? You would say, when we got married, I was 19 years old. Rather than just saying, oh, I was 19. Does that make sense? It's like putting the question back into your answer so that it sort of makes sense if we don't see him.
Oh, okay. But won't you still hear him?
Well, yeah.
Man, he might then he can edit me out.
Oh,
Yeah,
And
well, yeah, he might be in some, might be out some.
oh, okay,
so-
all right, sure.
Okay, so good, sorry.
Okay. So how old were you and Dad when you got married?
When we got married, I was 19, had barely turned 19, because we were married on October 11th, 1952, and he had just turned 22. So, and he had been gone 16 months to service, because he was in the National Guard, and they got activated during the Korean adventure that the country had. So he was gone, and as soon as he got back, he says, we're getting married, you know, so he got back in July of 52, and we got married in October of 52. So,
I was curious about the interim period. You were 15 when you met him, 19 when you married, so that's a 4-year.
yeah, it was
Dating courtship.
long distance back and forth from St. Louis to DuQuoin. He used to ride the Greyhound bus down. He had no car. Once in a while, I would come on the bus and stay at my Aunt Lena's house. And when his unit got activated and he knew he was going to be leaving, that's when he gave me my diamond ring we got engaged, because he said he didn't want me loose while he was gone, because somebody else would come along. So he wanted to make sure we were engaged before he left.
So does this mean you never even dated another guy?
Right, exactly. I never dated anybody else.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So when he proposed to you, you said yes, you knew you wanted to marry him?
Yes. Well, he had a conversation with my father, and my father says, is this what you want to do to me? And I said yes, so. And my mother said, where's the ring? It was so funny, because when he came to talk to my dad, he hadn't bought a ring, because he didn't know for sure if my dad would kick him out, But my dad liked him because he was an Italian, Sicilian boy.
And they knew the family.
They basically knew the family, yeah, so he was Italian, So he was for it. My mother was never for it. But she just didn't want, well, she knew when I got married, if I married him, I'd be moving away, for one thing. I'd wind up in St. Louis, but it was okay.
So you say for one thing, was there any other thing?
That I'd be moving?
Yeah, that you said your mother wasn't too crazy about you getting married.
Well, because she just didn't want to lose a daughter, I guess, I mean.
She thought she'd keep you home forever?
Yeah, because there were a lot of Italian girls in DuQuoin who never got married because they were kept under the thumb of the parents. And, I mean, it was just the old-fashioned tradition, I guess.
You keep the kids home, they take care of the house.
Yeah, they take care of the mom and dad when they get old. And yeah, so I escaped. Oh my gosh, it was funny.
So tell us a little bit about the wedding. What day did you get married?
Well, hang on, before we go to that, what about while Peepaw was off in the service, did you
Oh,
write
yeah,
letters?
that's right.
Or
Yes, we wrote letters back and forth all that time. I think by the time he came home, we had like 125 letters or something between the two of us. And when we bought our house in Hazelwood, we had all these letters in a box, we're moving. We said, what are we going to do with all these letters? Well, we should have kept them, but we decided we would burn them. So we just burned the whole box of letters. And so.
Why burn them as opposed to?
Well, we just thought they were.
Like someone, no.
Oh no, we didn't want anybody finding them and reading them, No, we just thought they were private. They were ours. We didn't want anybody else anybody else to read them. So we decided we'd just burn them. And that's what we did. So, yeah, we did a lot of letter writing back and forth.
So say it again, when did he get home and then when did you get married?
He got home in July of 52, and we got married October 11th of 52.
August, September, only 3 months
Yeah,
later.
to plan a wedding. But we didn't. And we had kind of an unusual wedding because naturally they wanted, his parents and that, they said, well, let's have the wedding in St. Louis. Oh, no. I was born and raised in DuQuoin. My family was from DuQuoin, so I was going to get married in DuQuoin. So we did at 8 o'clock in the morning. Had to get married because Father Hafner actually had another wedding scheduled that day. I think that wedding was at 10 o'clock. So he said, if you want that date, you're going to have to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning. He said, because I can't do another wedding after the second wedding. Because at that time, the priests were not allowed to eat or drink anything before they said a mass, because they had to do the communion thing, you know, during the mass. And he was very old and sickly by that time. So we said, okay, we'll take 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, it was kind of rough getting everybody ready, but we had 3 bridesmaids, and Cookie was 7 years old. She was a little flower girl. And then we went back to my mother and dad's house, and while we were at church having the wedding, my dad had his cousin come and do a big barbecue of zazitza. My grandfather made, because he used to make the homemade zazitza. And I forgot that guy's name. But anyway, he cooked all the zazitza, and the women made salad and all that, and we had a big breakfast at the house there. And then we went to the fairgrounds and took all the fairground pictures. And then we left, everybody drove to St. Louis, and we had a reception at the Hamilton Hotel at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever, that evening, with a sit-down dinner. I think it was chicken. And a dance with the live band. And that was it. So we had a really nice wedding to plan in 3 months.
Sounds like it was a really nice full day, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was full
How
day.
many people were at the reception?
Oh, maybe 150, I don't remember. We've got those pictures which shows people sitting around, you know. Yeah, it was nice.
So where did you go for your honeymoon night?
There was a motel out by the airport somewhere. I don't remember the name of it. We went there, and then the next morning, Aunt Angie let us borrow her car. She had that, you remember that car that we wound up having?
With the big fins on the back?
Yeah. Well, that car, when we got married, was much newer, naturally. And she let us borrow it to go to the Ozarks. And we went to that Lazy Days resort.
Yeah.
Remember we took all you kids there
Yes.
later?
I didn't realize that's where you went on your honeymoon.
Yeah. But
So you had like a cabin and
yeah,
right on the lake? And
right, yeah.
You stayed there a week?
No, we only stayed 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and came back. So,
And what was the plan when you got back then? Where did you live?
actually, Grandpa had a 4-family flat on Wells Avenue, and they let us rent one of the flats.
It's like 2 below
It
and
was-
2 up above?
Yeah,
like,
4 units.
Were they living in one?
Yes, they were living in one, and we were on the same floor, first floor. we bought furniture, and it was nice. Well, we lived there until we got that store, and then that store had an empty apartment upstairs from it, so we moved above the store.
You didn't buy, they didn't buy the building, they were renting the
We were
building?
renting the building,
But
thank
it
God.
It came with the apartment.
Yes, the whole building. It was one unit like.
So why the decision to move to the apartment at the store? So work would be more convenient? Or
Work would
was
be.
it about escaping a little distance from grandma and grandpa?
Well, for me, no, but we didn't really because they were in the store too. You know, I mean,
Every
it was.
day.
Yeah. And Sam was 6 months old. I had to leave him and be the checker in the store, which I didn't like that at all. But I didn't want to leave my baby. But anyway, and business never was a great business. I mean, it wasn't enough for two families to make a living out of. And then one day, this man walked in the store, and he said, you have, I don't know if he gave us 2 months or 3 months, to vacate the building, he says, because I just bought it. And he was going to turn it into an insurance office. And so we had to get out of there. So,
Maybe it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because it gave you the excuse to get out of the
right,
business.
exactly. Yeah.
Like the business was just struggling along.
Yeah, it was just, we were going nowhere, you know, so.
What year was that? How many years had you been married?
Well,
Was the
we got the
business 4 or 5
store, we
years?
got the store in March, we had the store 5 years. From March of '53 till, wait a minute, we got married in '52, Sam was born in '53, and he was 6 months old when we got the store, so what would that have made, '54? I think it was March of '54. We got the store because we got out in '59, and that's when we bought our house in Hazelwood.
Yeah, that makes sense because I was born in '57.
And you were two.
When you moved into the Hazelwood house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that means I was actually conceived at that apartment probably.
Oh, yeah,
that store.
sure, you and Candy, and, because that's who we had when we moved, was you three guys when we moved.
What was the address of this store?
The address of the store on Kings Highway was 5001 South Kings Highway, across the street from the firehouse.
What was the name of the store?
Southway Market. It was a nice store. I mean, it was a small corner neighborhood store.
You
know.
sold meat. Was there a meat counter?
Oh yeah, Dad had a
Fresh
beautiful meat counter in that store.
And then small goods, kind of like a Menino's today, or
No, bigger than that.
Oh.
It was bigger than that. Yeah, but it was only one checkout, so, and I was the checker.
you said you didn't want to leave Sam to check. Where did you leave Sam when you would go?
Grandma took care of him.
Upstairs.
Yeah, she would either, well, before we moved upstairs from the store, she would just keep him at her house, because for a while we were driving back and forth. And then we decided this is crazy, us doing all this driving back and forth. Plus, they felt like they needed somebody on the premises, you know, I mean, like people would see that we'd leave and the whole store was empty all night as far as having any people living there. So we thought it'd be better if we moved in upstairs. And then finally they moved from Wells Avenue and rented an apartment 2 doors down from the store.
Wells Avenue was the 4-family flat.
Yes. And then they moved in that apartment that was 2 doors away from the store. And either I'd take Sam up there or she'd come over, you know, and watch him while I worked in the store. But that was hard.
So in 1959, the business closes, so Dad has to find a job. So what
Yes.
did he do?
He went to work for Jimmy Simonella, who he had worked for before he went in the service.
Jimmy Simonella owned his own store.
Yes, in North Kings Highway. And Dad worked for him.
He was cutting meat.
Yes. And then, let's see, in the meantime, we moved to Hazelwood. Jimmy's store was on, you know where Calvary Cemetery is, up north?
Florissant Road.
Yeah, was that the name of that road? It was on that road, right across the street from the cemetery. And Dad worked there. And then Jimmy got in trouble too, and he had to close his store. And that's what he knew Markowitz really well. They played, a bunch of men, businessmen, had sort of a club. And they played poker for big money, and I think that's how Jim got in trouble. And so he talked to Markowitz. He says, I got a really great meat cutter, but I'm going to have to let him go. He said, because I'm closing my store. He said, would you take him? Because they had the Del Monte stores. Well, they only had one at that time on Woodson Road. And Dave, the old man Dave, said, yeah, send him to see me. And so Dad went sort of for an interview, you know, and Dave liked him, and he said, yeah, you can work for me. And that's how he got involved with Del Monte and worked for them for 21 and a half years till they went out of business.
Started at the Woodson store.
And then they opened
the Florissant store.
Right. He said, can I work over there? Because he says, it's so close to my house, you know, as opposed to driving to Woodson Road every day. They said, yeah, we need guys over there, same as we need you over here, you know. But at that time, they had like 20 meat cutters, you know, and they all had to wear the white shirt and the bow tie and waited on customers.
And he was there 21 years, huh?
21 and a half years, yeah.
And that's whenever Del Monte went out of business then, so he lost his job.
Mm-hmm. That's when he went to work for Frank Valenti. That was hard.
So how did it was hard for him to lose his job after
Hard,
so many
yeah,
years.
because by that time he was, what, like 51 years old or something, and he got offered jobs like from I think National was still in business, but he would have been a floater where he was needed because National had a lot of stores. In other words, like, this guy's on vacation at this store, you go fill in. Then next week you might be at another store. Next week you might be at another store. And he didn't like that idea. So he went in and talked to Frank Valenti one day, and because he had seen that little market there. And Frank hired him. So,
How long was he with Frank?
you know, I can't remember, 7 or 8 years, I think. Maybe longer. And then he retired when he was 65. I kept telling him to retire at 62. He said, no, I'm going to work till 65. And he did. And then he didn't live, 65 to 71, so he was just retired 6 years when he died.
Then after Frank, then he worked for Menino.
Yeah, well, after he retired at 65, Frank was running the meat department for Menino at that time because he lost his business, he lost his house, he lost everything. And he went to work for Menino running the meat department. And Frank was a hard person to work for. And when Dad retired from there, he said, I really want to tell that guy off. You know, he said, but I'm not going to say anything. And lo and behold, after Dad retired and we were living in Moscow Mills, Frank calls him. He said, Angelo, you want to come and work 2 days a week over here? I'm running this meat department at Menino's, and we need somebody. And he says, and I know you're the best worker I know. Dad's kind of shocked, you know. And he said, well, yeah, okay. You know? He almost didn't want to do it, but Frank really got humbled, I think, you know, when he lost everything. And he was so nice to Dad after, when he went to work, you know, over there. And because then Menino was treating Frank the same way Frank treated Dad, you know? So
Right.
like you say, what goes around comes around. So be careful what you do and say. Because you'll get it back eventually. So anyway,
Do you want to say anything about, you had 7 kids altogether,
right,
boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Candy was
a twin.
twin, so you want to just
That
tell
was a shock.
Say that story a little bit.
Well, when Candy, we were still living above the store then.
Here, hang on one second before you go into that. Okay, so go ahead.
So the story about Candy and the twins and
Yeah, well, I got pregnant and was going to the doctor for my regular checkups and everything, and nobody said anything about twins. And at the 7th month, I got up early one morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, to go to the bathroom, because when you're pregnant, that's what you do. You get up and go to the bathroom 100 times a night. And I noticed I was having leakage, not, you know, regular.
you knew something was
I
up.
knew something was not right. And so I went and laid back down, and then, well, I felt wetness again, and I thought, well, something's not right. So I called my doctor, and they said, well, if you're still leaking in 2 hours, wait 2 hours, and then go to the hospital if you are. So I was, and we had to open the store at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, so I told Dad, I said, you better go drop me off, and you come back and open the store. Because he was the only meat cutter. He ran the whole meat department. So that's what we did. And lo and behold, when I was there in the labor room, and they used to have these little candy striper girls come, and they'd check you, take your temperature, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she was listening to my belly with the stethoscope, and she says, I keep getting your heartbeat and the baby's heartbeat on the same count, and I can't keep them straight. Well, meantime, she was getting 2 babies, and nobody knew it. So anyway, I progressed. They took me to the labor, because then they had the labor room, then they moved you to the delivery room. It's not like now when they do everything in one room. So anyway, they took me to the delivery room, and the next thing I know, I heard the doctor saying, boy, I sure didn't know there were 2. And I was like half out of it, because at that time, you had your babies natural until the head crowned, and then they'd give you a good whiff of gas. And by that time, you were just ready to suck in all you could take, you know, like, you know. So I was out of it. And I heard him say that, and I thought, is he talking about me or somebody else? And then they came and they were shaking my arm, kind of waking me up and saying, Mrs. Ingracia, who's your pediatrician? You've got 2 tiny little girls, and we need them to get a pediatrician come to check them out. I said, what? 2 little girls, 3.5 pounds and 3 pounds. So Candy was the firstborn. She was a 3.5 pounder. And the other baby was 3 pounds. And then she only lived like 10 or 12 hours. And I think they knew probably when she was born she wouldn't make it. I don't know. But it was that upper respiratory lungs not developed enough.
it's a shame because today she would have.
Oh, yeah,
survived, no
yeah.
doubt.
Today they would have
They
been
would know
able.
what to do.
Yeah. So Candy had to stay in the hospital 5 weeks before we brought her home. She was in an incubator, and then she graduated to a basket.
Would you get to touch her and hold her? And
Not while she was in the incubator. Mm-mm. Did not hold her till the day we brought her home from the hospital.
Wow, that's terrible.
I know, yeah, but that's the way it was then.
So no doubt you would probably go to the hospital every day.
Oh yeah, we went on. Yeah, we very seldom missed a day. But she had to reach 5 pounds before they could release her. You know. Yeah, that was a experience. So.
So the little baby that died, what was her name?
Mary, after my mother. So, because we still did the old Italian.
So you named
Custom.
the two girls after the two grandmas.
Right,
Cecilia.
and Mary, yeah. So then when Mary Kay was born, I still felt like I wanted my mother to have a baby named after her, so we named her Mary Kay. And we always called her Mary Kay. We never called her just Mary. So she was still named after my mom, but we added the K in, which...
So the little baby that died, did you have a service for her? Or
They
what?
did have
What
a
they
service for her, but I was not there. I had to stay in the hospital. They wouldn't let me go home for like 5 days or something, 7 days. So they went ahead and had it. It was just a little private. I think all that was there was Dad and Uncle Jack and Aunt Betty. I don't think anybody else. I don't know for sure, but it seems like that's how I remember.
Was it actually a little casket and everything?
Yeah.
Where is she buried?
At Calvary Cemetery. Yeah. In the Ingrassia plot.
So did the 12 hours that she lived, did you get to hold her? Or?
Mm-mm. No, they were working on her, trying to save her. Mm.
So that was a very bittersweet
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. We still had a baby to take home, but we lost one, so. Yeah. We were so shocked at first. It's like, twins? How am I going to take care of twins? And I had Sam at home. He was only 27 months. And then when we were getting excited about it, you know, gee, twins, little girls. And one baby died. So, yeah, it was sad.
Do you know if they were identical? Or?
Yes, they were identical twins. Mm-hmm. That's what they told us.
It's amazing, I guess in that day and age, they had no way to monitor that there was twins.
Yeah, I know. I just can't imagine that they didn't even know I was having twins. It's just things are different now, I tell you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if we should go forward or back. I have a lot of questions to ask historic, like even before you got married.
Well, I don't
you
know
wanna
how
do
much
that,
I
or-
know. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hang on.
Or
Okay.
should we keep,
Longer, and then we'll do the lunch thing. So. Okay. So
do
what-
some of the historical stuff?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Let's,
Okay, so if we go backwards, even before you met Dad, you were born in DuQuoin, Illinois.
In the house. I was born on a Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at 326 North Linden Street. And I lived there till I got married.
The house Nana lived in most of her
70
life.
years.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you just talk about, are we going to ignore it or you want to get it? Okay, can you tell us where were you born?
I was born in DuQuoin, Illinois, 326 North Linden Street, on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock on August 13th, 1933.
So
In the house where my parents lived. I was born in the, well, I said 326 North Linden, yeah. Okay.
So I want to ask you a little bit, what was DuQuoin like growing up in DuQuoin? But before we get to that, can you say a few words about how did your mom and dad, how did the family end up in DuQuoin, that you were born in DuQuoin?
Well, my mother's story was, you want me to go all the way back to Italy?
Sure.
My grandfather and grandmother, Leo and Antonia Pizzolatto, were childhood sweethearts. They lived next door to each other from the time they were little bitty kids. There was a gate between their two houses, and they'd swing on that gate together. They'd swing on the gate. That's all they talked about, swinging on that gate. And then when they grew up, they got married. And my grandmother had Lena, and she was pregnant with my mother. And my grandfather decided that he was going to America, because that's when I think all those Italian people were coming to America to make their fortune. And she lived with her brother while he was gone. And then he sent word for her to come, but my mom was 3 years old by then. She always says she was 3 when they came, her and her mother and my Aunt Lena came on a boat to America. And they came through Ellis Island, and they almost got sent back to Italy because my mother had an eye infection. And they kept them there 1 week and medicated her eyes and said, if she's not better in a week, you're going back to Italy. Well, they were scared to death, you know. But thank God, when they rechecked my mom's eyes, they were fine, so they let them stay. And my grandfather had a brother who lived in New York, and I guess they connected with them. And then they didn't like New York. So where did they go after that? They went to DuQuoin, I think. Yeah, they did, because my grandfather had another brother in DuQuoin who was working in the coal mines. And they said, come here, you can get a job in the coal mines, you know. So they did that. Well, my grandfather did not like the coal mines. So they moved to St. Louis. And when they moved to St. Louis, they were working at 12 years old. My mom only went to 6th grade, because then they went to work in the factories, the clothing factories, sewing on the machines or whatever. And then while they were living in St. Louis, my mother's little 8-year-old sister was killed by a hit-and-run driver. Well, my grandmother went bananas, and she says, I'm not staying here anymore, I'm not living here, we're leaving. So they went back to DuQuoin, and that's when my grandfather opened the little corner grocery store. And that's how they made their living all their life. And that's how my mom ended up permanently in DuQuoin. And my dad, I don't know exactly how he got to DuQuoin, because he was in Italy, and in Italy the military was compulsory. When a guy reached 19, they had to go away for a year, go in service. And he did that. But he had in his mind to come to America, but he wanted to do his service to Italy before he did that. And so when his year was up, his commanding officer, who he was working for, that guy had a horse or something, and my dad was like real close with this colonel or commander, whoever he was. And the guy said to him, Tony, he says, I like to keep you on. You come where I live and I'll give you a job, you know, and let you work. He said, no, he says, I'm going home to Sicily to see my mother, and then I'm going to America. And I believe Sirocco was already in DuQuoin. He did not serve the Italian. He left before he had to serve.
He was your dad's older brother.
No, he was actually younger than my
Oh,
dad.
okay.
Some way or another, I think he was a year younger. So anyway, I guess that's how my dad got to DuQuoin. I don't know. I guess he just went to, I never heard anything else, or I don't remember anything else. So, and he went to work, you know, in the coal mines, and it was by the time I came along, it was depression, everybody was poor, everybody, it was no luxury living, that's for sure. So that's about all I know about that.
So when he said goodbye to his mother and came to America, is it true your dad never ever went, neither dad nor Nana, your dad or mother ever went back?
No, they never went back to Italy.
I think that's a sad part of the story.
Well, everybody
They
was
never saw their parents
well,
again,
they
never
knew.
saw
I think they
cousins.
knew when they left that they were, because everybody was so poor, nobody had
Sirocco
anything.
went back.
Well, that was way after. That was right before. He was in Italy when my dad died. When my father died in 1950, what was it?
5?
55, yeah. February 10th, 1955, my father died. That's when Sirocco went back, because there was a dispute over an empty lot or something. One brother was trying to take it, and so he went over there to straighten out that mess. I don't know if he did or he didn't. But, yeah. No, my dad used to write letters to his mom, and she would write back. But they never went back. Never had the money, I guess.
So, what do you know of the story of how your dad found Nana and they got married?
Well, I don't really know that much about the story, except he went to, he had a cousin named Sam Licata that was living in DuQuoin at the time, and my dad was 30. And I guess this cousin was kind of saying, Tony, you need to find a wife, and because I think he was living in a rented room or something. So he said, there's a lady over there a few blocks away that's got 4 daughters. Go ask them. That's what they did. They said, go ask them if you can marry one of your daughters. So anyway, and they always went that the oldest had to get married first, So he did. He went to my grandpa and said, I'm looking for a wife. Can I marry one of your daughters? Or he thought it would have been Lena, because Lena was the oldest. And my grandfather said, well, she's already going to marry Pete Biondo. I don't know if they were engaged and they were waiting. I don't know. Anyway, he couldn't get Lena because, not that he wanted Lena, he just assumed that since she was the oldest, that would be the one. So he said, well, how about the next one then? Which was my mom. So my grandmother says, if you build her a house, you can marry her. So this is bad. Anyway, he built a house, nice 4-room, brand new bungalow on Hickory Street, and they lived in it a year. And he came home one day and he says, we're moving because I sold the house. Well, my mom went ballistic, my grandmother went ballistic and all that. But he had seen the property on Linden Street with those 2 lots, and he wanted that big yard. But the house was a mess. And it was next door to Obertini. Well, he knew Obertini, so he liked him.
Maybe it had to do with the money. Maybe he could sell the house and make a profit, or...
Well, I think he sold the house for like $1,100. I mean, it's not like he made money on it. Probably cost him that much to build it. I don't know how prices were back then. I think, personally, in my heart, I think he sold that house to spite my grandmother, because she had said to him, you can marry my daughter if you build her a house. And he was a hard-headed sort of person. I mean, he was a good man. He was a hard worker. It's just like, well, nobody's going to tell me what I have to do.
That's an unusual characteristic for the Sicilians.
Yeah, right. And that's what and that was a bone of contention all the rest of their life, really, because my mom really was upset that he didn't even ask her, you know what I mean, he just sold it. Sold it to John Newmy, they said. I knew John Newmy. But he really liked that that house had those 2 lots because he would plow it up and plant. I mean, to him, I think he thought he was back in Italy, sort of.
Have a big
To
garden.
have the big garden and a little piece of land and all that, you know. So anyway,
So what
I don't
about
know.
the discrepancy? How he was 30. How old was Nana?
15.
He
So there
was
was,
twice as old as her.
yeah.
Well, that's amazing. 15 is so young to get married.
Oh, well, in those days, shoot, they were letting them get married at 12, 13.
How did, do you have any idea how Nana felt about it? She just, this man comes, she don't even know who he is, and your parents say, okay, yeah, you're going to marry him.
It's just the way things were then, and you did what your parents told you to do, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't have liked it at all, I'll tell you that. So,
How did you perceive their relationship, your mom and dad? I mean,
well, there was a lot of fighting
did
going
he-
on all the time.
did he treat her like a wife or more like a,
I think
almost
he-
like a servant girl? Or,
No, not a servant girl, but he treated her more like a kid. Like her opinion didn't count, you know, like I'm the boss, I'm the head of this family. So it was okay. I mean, they got along, but they fought a lot.
she would fight him though.
Oh, she would fight him tooth and nail, yes. Because she wanted that, like I said, the house, from what they say, well, it was never in good shape when I came along. But when she wanted something done, something was broken, he always had to do it himself. You know what I mean? Like and he could do stuff, but, well, first place, I guess they had no money to hire, or it was hard to get anything new. You always had to fix what you had, you know, and so it was a hard life coming through that depression. It was pretty bad for people. So, and then he worked, I don't know if the mines laid off people or what, and then finally he got work on the WPA. Franklin Roosevelt put in that WPA, Work Programs of America, for men to work because everybody was starving. There was no jobs.
Were they building highways? What were they doing?
They were, they'd meet somewhere in town or wherever, I think, and they'd go out on trucks. They'd take them out on trucks, and they'd go out and, like at the strip mines where the ground was all dug up, well, then they would plant trees or cut the grass along the highways or anything to get them to work. Pay was $11 a week. How you going to live on $11 a week, although everything was cheap? Like Nana's favorite saying in all the world, eggs were 10 cents a dozen, but who had a dime? If I heard her say that once, I heard her say it a million times. And that's why Big Tony Licata and Dad each had put a dime in her dress when she died. Neither one knew the other one did it. So she got buried with 20 cents in the little cummerbund of the dress.
I never knew that story.
You never knew that story? Oh my gosh, how could you not know it?
If I'd have known it, I'd have given her a dime too.
But they both did it. You know, it was so funny because they were talking about it after. I think Tony Licata says, like, well, I gave her a dime or something. Dad says, well, I did too. I put a dime in her dress. So she got buried with 20 cents. Unless the funeral parlor guy took it out.
So, talk about how did your dad die?
My dad died, well, he had black lung to begin with. But in September, must have been of 54, he started feeling sick. And at first they thought he had the flu because he was like, you know how you feel when you have the flu, everything hurts, your body aches. So after a week or so, he wasn't getting better, so they went to the doctor, and the doctor discovered that his kidneys were in really bad shape. And he told my mom, he said, you can take him to St. Louis and see if they can do something, he said, but I really don't hold out much. Because then they didn't have anything. They didn't have dialysis. They didn't have the lithotripsy. They didn't have any of that stuff. So they knew this Italian doctor in St. Louis, Bart Passananti, who actually, his father was a cousin of my dad's. Went back, because my maternal grandmother's name was Passananti.
So he was actually a cousin, a distant
Yeah,
cousin then.
yeah. So got in touch with him, and they said, well, bring him in, we'll put him in the hospital and check him out. And so after a few days of testing, whatever, they said, well, we have to remove one kidney. One kidney is really not, it's not functioning, it's not doing anything. So then they did a couple more tests, or reviewed the tests they had. I don't know what, because then a day or two later they said, sorry, we can't do one kidney because the other kidney's just as bad. They're shot. Both kidneys are shot. So he just was at home, sick, throwing up, blood transfusions, and he died on February 10th. So he wasn't sick real long.
A year?
Well, from September
to February.
September to February.
So he really went down fast.
Yeah.
So, and he died in February of 55, which is almost 2.5 years before I was born.
Right. Well, I got pregnant with Candy right after, a few months after he died. So, because I only carried Candy 7 months. I didn't go the whole 9 months.
Do you know what year Nana and your dad got married?
Well, she always said she was born in 1906, and if she was 15, what, 6 and
21.
20, must have been 1921. I don't
And he
know.
died in 55.
They were married 32 years. She always said they were married 32 years
Okay.
when he died,
And how old was Nana when she died?
95.
And what year was it?
What year? Well, same year your father died, 20. She died on February 22nd of 02, and Dad died April 22nd of 02. 2 months to the exact day. She died, and then he died.
So she lived 47 years
She-
after her husband died.
Yeah, she was a widow longer than she was married. Yeah.
Should you say just a few words about how did Nana die, since you talked about your dad?
Well, when she was 92, she had that heart attack, plus all the other stuff that happened to her before then. And then from the time she had the heart attack and when she was 92, she didn't do well. And
So you talked about your mom, your dad, how they came to DuQuoin, how they died, a little bit about their life. Can you just talk about growing up in DuQuoin a little bit? What was that like?
well, I didn't know any different. I mean, I just thought everybody lived the way we lived. I was always barefooted, running around, going. I loved oranges, so once my mom had let me go to the non-new store, I said, okay, go get yourself an orange. So I'd get an orange, or get candy out of the candy thing. I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I just was there and had my little friends down the street and played and went to school. Didn't think nothing of it, you know. I just thought everybody lived the way we lived.
The store was within walking distance of the house?
Yeah, it was up 1 block and over 1 block. So, and then kids could run around, and it's not like now that can't let them out of your sight.
Well, I remember walking there.
We used to cut through the alley a lot.
Walk down the alley to go to Dairy Queen, which was right behind the store.
Right,
But I have vague memories of the store itself.
you do.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is my grandmother always said, someday this is going to be a church. I don't know why, I don't know if she had a dream, a vision, or someday this building is going to be a church. And sure enough, when they were both dead and they sold that building, a church came there. It was a, I don't know if it was a Pentecostal or, it was there quite a while, and they really remodeled that building and fixed it up nice. And it was a church for a long time.
Isn't
But
that,
I don't think it is now.
isn't that the building where I found the money in the hole
Yes,
that time?
yeah, in the grocery store. Mm-hmm.
I remember going there, yeah.
Yeah.
What about your brother? Talk about your brother Jack and your relationship.
Well, Jack was 4.5 years older than me, and we played a lot around, but you know how he was always off with his friends. He didn't want to mess around with the little sister. And then he went to service. As soon as he got out of high school, him and Philip Bruno went and signed up because they were best buddies, and they thought, oh, we'll go to the Army together. And they went through boot camp together. As soon as boot camp was over, Philip got sent to Germany and Jack got sent to Japan. They didn't see each other again for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. But that was after World War II. They was in what they called the occupation forces. So, but he went to Rolla. He's an engineer. We always had a close relationship. It's just like when I wanted to be the tag along when I was little, and he didn't want me tagging along, which my mother wouldn't let me anyway. So, but yeah, he's a good guy.
So you basically lived in DuQuoin the first 19 years of your life till you got married.
Right.
Did you ever have a job in DuQuoin?
Yeah,
When you were
after
a teenager?
no, not while I was a teenager. After I graduated from high school, and Dad was in service by that time. He had gotten their unit had gotten activated. And didn't know when he was coming home. Didn't know if he'd get sent overseas. Luckily, he didn't. So then I got a job at the DuQuoin Packing Company in the billing department.
Well, you would have been a teenager, right?
Yeah, I was only, 17 when I graduated from high school. So I worked there a little over a year, I guess. And then he got out ahead of time. He was supposed to be gone 21 months. And at 16 months, they started letting some of the guys go because they had what they called an overage. And the war was starting to wind down a little bit, so they didn't need all the soldiers they had. So he was able to get out 5 months early. And then we got married, so. But that was a nice little job I had. I mean, made $25 a week or something, But, yeah.
Did you work full time?
Yeah. 5 days a week. Yeah.
Did you get to keep your money, or did Nana take it?
No, she didn't take it. I kept it. Nope. Didn't have very much, but I saved it. And Dad was sending his checks home to his mother, his allotment checks. But she knew we were engaged, so she was saving those checks. Before, when he worked, he had to turn over his checks to them without being cashed when he was not in service or anything. But once we got engaged and he was gone, she started putting that money in the bank. And then when we were getting married, that's how we bought our first furniture. It was with that money he had been sending home.
Grandma gave the money back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we bought that bedroom set. That's part of it's all still in there. We bought, I don't know, a little kitchen table and chairs. I guess we bought a couch. I don't even really remember. We didn't have a TV till, let's see, we got married in October. I think it was February before we bought a TV. So then we finally bought a car when Sam was 6 months old, because it was pretty hard riding around on buses with the baby and diaper bag and all the stuff you got to carry. So we started out kind of slow and poor, like everybody else.
So we're going to go back to your family, our family, but before, I have this memory of this story about Grandpa and Gracia. When they got married, he kidnapped her
Right.
and fled to DuQuoin to hide in Nana's house.
Right.
Can you kind of tell that story?
Well, just what I've heard.
Okay.
Like Grandpa's family were close with Sirocco and them because of Sibipina's was a godchild of the old Grandma and Gracia from Italy. That's how they were bonded together. They didn't really know my dad's side of the family that well, or my dad and my mom. We never hung out with them. So when Grandpa wanted to marry Grandma, he went and asked her father. And from what I understand, he was a very difficult man.
This would have been Gibraltara.
Yes.
Grandpa Gibraltara.
Yes, Grandma's father. I don't know what his first name was. Maybe. I don't know. Well, anyway, he went and asked if he could, court her or whatever they had to ask. I don't know. And he said, no, but you can have that one, which was Aunt Carmy, because she was the oldest daughter. And he said, no, I don't want that one. I want the other one. He said, no. See who's on that phone. So.
Here, hang on a second. Christian.
No, just don't answer it. It's my friend, but I don't want to. If I start talking to her, she'll want to talk forever.
Here, let's wait.
Hello. Please leave a message after the
She'll leave a message probably.
Mary, this is Terry. Just give me a call when you can. Bye-bye.
Okay. So anyway, he said no, he didn't want that one. So there was a lot of contention between them, the two families for some reason, the Ingracias and the Gibraltaras. From what I understand, I never really heard the story.
There was some kind of history there.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. So anyway, and the old man did not like Grandpa at all. So he cooked up this deal about kidnapping her. Got a couple guys, friends of his, and he was hiding in the back seat of the car. And when she got off the streetcar coming home from work, it was dark, and they grabbed her and threw her in the car. Well, naturally, she started screaming bloody murder. She thought somebody was going to kill her. And he said, no, it's me, it's okay. And so they said, we're going to DuQuoin, Illinois. But they didn't want to go to Sirocco's house because he figured that'd be the first place they'd look for him when they figured out what was going on. So, or I think they might have gone to Sirocco's, and he said, no, you take her to my brother's house. They don't know them. He said, they'll come here and they'll look here. So they took him to my mom and dad's house. And my mom was very didn't want to do it. She thought, no, this could end up in a killing or a shooting or something.
So he kidnapped her, they went to DuQuoin and got married in DuQuoin?
I don't think they got married. I
Did
don't.
they get married in St. Louis, then go to DuQuoin?
No, they were not married when they were in DuQuoin.
Oh, they weren't married?
No,
Okay.
no, they were not. No, it was night. It was nighttime. Where were they going to get married? My mom always says my brother was like a year old, sitting in the high chair.
So you weren't born yet?
No, I was not born yet. And then the people did come from St. Louis. Her dad and Uncle Frank, I think, came with guns. And I think they went to the farm.
There was a posse.
Yeah. And then Sirocco finally said, well, we took them to my brother's house. So they went there. And my mom was very upset because here comes these people in with guns, and she's got a baby sitting in the high chair. And probably Grandma was crying her eyes. How emotional she always got.
That Grandma and Grandpa were hiding in the basement?
I don't know. Did they say that?
That's what I remember. But
I don't know. I really don't know.
Was there an altercation?
I know there was probably a big mess.
I thought the Gibraltaras came, but they didn't find them because they were hiding in the basement.
No, I think they found them. I think Sirocco finally told them where
So
they were.
They got Grandma and took her back to
Well,
St.
they
Louis?
asked her. Her dad said to her, "I'll take you home right now, and that's it." Or, "What are you going to do?" She said, "No, I'm staying with him." So she stayed.
She made her choice.
She made her choice. So, but then they didn't speak again for over a year, I think, from what I understand.
Till after Dad was born?
Well, she was pregnant. She was pregnant, I think, when her dad came around. I don't know.
I understand this story where Grandma and Grandpa had a fight. It was the first year. Her father wasn't talking to her. They had a fight. She ran home to her mom and dad's house. She stayed there a day or two.
Because that's possible. I
Then
don't know.
Grandpa went to get her and say, "Cecilia, come home with me."
Mm-hmm.
And Grandpa Gibraltara tried to attack him with a knife.
Oh my, I don't know. I never heard that.
You don't remember that story?
No, I don't. But I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I don't know.
He had to jump because Grandpa
Really?
Gibraltara was going to stab him with a knife.
I don't know.
Grandpa used to tell this story.
Who knows? I don't know. Everything gets so mixed up.
Is there any other outstanding features about DuQuoin you feel like should be included? When did the fair come to DuQuoin?
Oh my gosh, the fair's been there. Well, what anniversary were they celebrating while we were there?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Over 50.
The
way
fair
over 50.
has been there as long as I ever remember.
When you were a little kid,
Oh
the
yeah,
fair was there?
yeah. Because my dad had a big old truck there for a while, and we would go to the fair.
He'd sell produce or what?
No, he just had a truck. He would move people for a dozen eggs. Move their trash from one trashy house to another trashy. Not as a business, as a favor. And people didn't have money to pay, so they'd give them a dozen eggs, give them a chicken, or people had no money. It was horrible. So anyway, my dad would get a barrel and fill it with water, and we'd go to the fair, and he'd hand out free water around his truck. Because, people come out of there, how you're all hot and sweaty, and probably back then, I don't know what kind of stands they had. I don't know what they sold, what they didn't sell. And my mom was worried about it, She thought, they're going to put you in jail for giving them free water, He said, people are thirsty. I'm going to give them water. I don't know if he ever got in any trouble for it.
Well, that speaks something of his heart. He was he wanted to be kind to people or something.
Yeah.
What's like your earliest memory of the fair?
I think being there with that truck. I must have been little. I bet I wasn't 5 years old.
Did they have a fairway in them days, rides and all that when you were a kid?
As I was growing up, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you remember when
We
they
had
built the grandstands?
I remember when they built, first there used to be an old grandstand that was made out of wood or, old-fashioned. And then that thing got to be so rickety, I guess they were afraid it was going to crash. And they built the one they have now, which they call the new grandstand, which is probably over 50 years old now. I don't know. So, but I remember when I was a kid, like on Labor Day night was the last night of the fair, they always had a big name star from Hollywood. Like Bob Hope was there, Andy Williams was there, you name any of those old movie stars, they all appeared at the fair. That was a big deal. Now they have these country western things, and they don't have the big names like they used to.
So when we went to the fair at couple 6, I've been going to the fair my whole life.
See?
I've been going for over 50 years myself. You've been going for 80 years to the fair.
Yeah. And I don't know what year it actually started. I don't know. You could look it up on the computer, tell you.
We'd have to look it up. What year were you born?
1933.
See, I'm thinking it started in 26. I might be wrong. I don't know
Really?
why.
Wow. Then that would be way before I was born.
I'm not sure though. I don't know what else to ask about that. Nothing else you think of?
No.
The very first job I ever had in my life was at the fair.
Selling the newspapers?
Yeah, I sold
The DuQuoin Evening Call.
Call was 10 cents each. I don't know if Uncle Jack got me the
He
job
probably
or
did.
Uncle or Big Tony. I think
Well,
Big
Big
Tony,
Tony,
might have been working
he
there.
was working at the Call.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think somehow through.
All through his high school years, he worked at the Call. He was always interested in any politics or anything that was coming up, you know.
We would go to the fair all week then. Dad would work, we'd go to the fair, we'd stay at Nana's house all week. Sam got a job there for a couple years working in the grandstands.
Right,
They wouldn't let me work in the grandstands, I was too little.
yeah.
So I sold newspapers.
Candy worked in
Candy
the,
striping or something?
no, in the stand, that concrete stand where we eat all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
With Dora.
Where,
Dora,
like Apple City is.
yeah, but it wasn't called Apple City then. Dora DeMarie always worked in that stand, so Candy would be with her. Yeah, you seemed to all enjoy it, I guess.
It was the week before school.
Yeah,
And we'd stay till Labor Day, and normally school started the next day.
right,
Tuesday.
next day, right. Yeah.
I wonder if Nana liked having us there all week, or she was glad to see us go.
She was probably glad to see us go. We all had to sleep on the floor and all that stuff.
I remember piling up the blankets and the pillows on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we did that for years and years.
Yeah.
So, nothing else about DuQuoin you think of?
No. It was just a normal life.
So you stayed there for 19 years, then you got married and left, and then you've been going back to DuQuoin for over 60 years.
Right. Yeah. We went down there a lot.
And someday you're going to end up in DuQuoin.
And I'm going to end up there again. Oh, my.
Tell about that. Why are you going to end up there?
Well, because sometimes Dad and I would talk about where are we going to get buried when we die, not thinking we're really going to die. You know how you just talk about it. And I said to him, well, if I die before you, I want to get buried in DuQuoin. And he says, well, I'm going where you're going. So when he died, I just buried him in DuQuoin.
Well,
So there's all those empty graves over there not being used, you know.
Your great-grandparents are buried there.
No.
Nana's mom and dad.
No, they're not there.
Okay, I'm confused.
Nana's mom and dad.
That's what I said, yeah.
That's my grandparents, not my.
Oh, yeah, I meant to say grandparents.
Okay, yeah.
Your
That's
grandparent-
what threw me off.
Your grandparents were buried there.
Yes,
And your parents were buried there.
right. And my brother's buried there,
Your brother and his wife, and now your husband's buried there.
and I have a ton of cousins buried there.
And there's, what, 6, 8, 10 more empty graves.
Yeah.
So you started in DuQuoin, you'll end in DuQuoin.
No, I hope I end in heaven. I don't want to end in DuQuoin. Yeah.
Tell the story about the two boys and the train and all that.
Well, my poor uncle bought that farm because he had these sons, and he thought this is a good place for them to be, and we'll all work together and make this farm be a profit and all that. And here the poor guys get killed in the train wreck, and it was pretty horrible. I just had very vague memories of the two coffins in that living room. They were closed. They just had a picture of each kid on there.
How did they die? What happened?
They were delivering milk to the town because I guess they had some people that were buying the milk from their cows they had at the farm. And the boy, Jack, the oldest son, was 19, and he was a major football and basketball star in the town, very well known. He had a game that night, and he was in a rush, so he went to deliver the milk and was at the crossing that was one block south of the Main Street crossing in DuQuoin. And it was double tracks, and he was stopped waiting for this freight train that was going north. And as soon as that train ended, he started across the tracks, not knowing or realizing that a southbound streamliner train, which goes extremely fast, does not even stop in the town, it just whizzes through, was on that second track right as he crossed, and it nailed him and killed them both instantly. And it was pretty tragic, very tragic.
His name was Jack.
Jack.
He was 19.
Mm-hmm. Had his little brother, Pete, who was 10, with him. And so that's that story. I mean, it's just, they say the day of that funeral, all the people could not fit in the church because all the towns around had the teams, the school teams, came because he was so well known. It was, and my uncle and aunt never got over it. My sister-in-law Betty used to say, she met them, you know, when she got involved with my brother, she said, "Those people don't have happy eyes." I guess that sadness just shone through, you know. It was sad.
How could you get over it? How old were you when they died?
I was 3.5, something like that.
Do you have any memory of it at all?
No. Not, I mean, just vague, you know. I can remember people all crying and those 2 coffins in that room. I do not remember the funeral. Maybe I didn't. Maybe they didn't take me. I don't know. It was a bad thing to happen.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you say about Uncle Jack?
Well, he was a great guy. My brother was, I think, a unique person.
What made him unique?
Well, just, he was loved by everybody. Popular. I never heard anybody say anything bad about him. He was always helping people. I'm sure he did a lot of things for people that we never even knew or heard about. He took care of my mother for years after my dad died, and she was not an easy person. I don't know, he just was great. And I loved Aunt Betty. She was the closest thing I ever had to a sister. I always wanted a sister, never had one, so I just kind of took her as my sister. And it's just a shame that she got so sick and then he drops dead, and, you know.
Talk about that just how did she get sick?
Well, I don't know, actually, because they say she had Alzheimer's, and it started at an early age. And at first, I think it was, you know, the kids were all gone, married and gone, and they would come home, and they would say to my brother, is Mom, something wrong with Mom, you know, something doesn't seem right, and he'd say, she's just getting forgetful. You know, he was in denial, you know. So finally, I don't know how long that went on, that the kids were saying, no, something's wrong, Dad, blah, blah. So they started going to doctors, and they put her on that one medicine that was supposed to be so great for Alzheimer's. I can't remember the name of it. And I guess it didn't seem to do any good, and she just progressed worse and worse. He kept working just to, I think, to try to keep some sanity, you know. he had this woman who would come and stay with her like from 8 in the morning till 12 or 1 o'clock. So he could go to work. He'd worked half a day. It got to the point where he only worked half days. Just, I think, to get out of the house, mainly. And she just got pretty bad. I mean, couldn't be left alone. And finally had to put her in the nursing home.
But he kept her at home as long as
He,
he could.
as long as he possibly could, he kept her at home, yeah. And then the weird thing about it is he died before her. And at one point, my mother and my sister-in-law were both in the nursing home at the same time,
I remember.
across the hall from each other. And the poor guy would go to work, and then he'd go, you know, he went to the nursing home every day. So I think that's why they got as good a care as they did, because they knew he was going to show up, and he let them know something wasn't right, you know. So then when he passed away, they couldn't leave her there alone in DuQuoin, so Carolyn took her to Lincoln, Illinois, and had her in a nursing home right by her house so she could go there every day till she finally passed away. So another sad ending.
Well, maybe it was a mercy that Uncle Jack died the way he did, just like Dad.
Yeah, right. I think that's the best death anybody can have for the person, but it's hard on the family because you're not expecting it. You're not, you know, they're not sick where you're taking care of them. They're just gone.
And what about your nephew and nieces? What children did Uncle Jack have and Aunt Betty?
Uncle Jack and Aunt Betty had Tony Licata, who is a year and a day younger than Sam, my son. And 8 years later, they had Faye. And 8 years after Faye, they had Carolyn.
Really? 8, and 8?
Yes.
Like that. I didn't
They had
realize
3 children. They're each 8 years apart. Well, Tony from Carolyn is 16 years. But
that. Right.
yeah, that was kind of strange, I thought. But anyway, Tony's a Harvard lawyer, Faye's a dentist, and Carolyn's a teacher. So he did good by his kids, the best he could. Yeah. So they're the only nieces and nephews I have on my side because I only had one brother. And they still keep in touch.
Yeah, we've seen him a couple times a year. It's been nice.
Mm-hmm.
So what, nothing else about DuQuoin stands out to you to say, or?
No.
Okay.
When you start to think about it, I didn't live there that long, just 19 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just compared to, I've been alive 80 years. So. But it still feels like home, sort of, in a way.
It does to me whenever I go there. I have like a warm, fuzzy thing.
Mhm.
Like was, you know, a huge part of our life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It seems the same to me. Like when I go there, I'm not sure it feels any different than
Yeah.
when I used to go there when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like it hasn't changed all that much. I mean, they got the Walmart now.
Mm-hmm.
They build a new hotel, but pretty much
The town is pretty much the same.
Main
Yeah.
Street's the same as it's always been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Linden Street's the same.
Yeah.
The fairgrounds, everything is just
Mm-hmm.
where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love my wedding pictures at the fair. They are really nice on the bridge.
Whose idea was that, or did all the girls go to the fair to
Pretty much, yeah.
It was just kind of the most
Well,
hard
the most scenic,
scenic
beautiful, always looked very pretty, good background for pictures. I think most people did go to the fair to have wedding pictures. Real nice. Mm-hmm.
So should we fast forward into some other things now?
Yeah. Let's see. We talked about how you met people. Why don't you tell the story again about? So you had the store on Kings Highway, but then you ended up in Hazelwood. So how?
Right.
So
Oh,
how-
about the house.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a story about the house. Like I said, we found this house, not our house. It was on a. Maybe we'd gone out. Well, it had to be the week before because we only went on Sundays looking because he worked all the time. So I guess it was this one Sunday we went and we found this one house, and like I said, we were getting desperate. We needed to get moved because a guy had given us a time limit on getting out of that building. So we said, oh, okay, I guess we didn't, we weren't 100% sure that we liked it, but we thought, well, he said, you know what, let's get Spence and Viola to come out here with us and look at it, because they were both, she was in the banking, insurance, he was sort of in real estate. Maybe they can give us some pointers, of whether we should buy this house or not. And so I guess we asked them, Dad called Spence and asked them if they would take a ride with us. And I guess we went the next night, which probably would have been a Monday evening. And the guy that, what do you call the guy that's the agent, of that subdivision was going to meet with us. So he took us down, showed us the house, and we're looking, and we were supposed to actually sign the papers if we were going to buy it. And I don't know, Viola says, yeah, okay, it's a nice house, it seems okay. But we were hesitant. Dad was hesitant, and I kept looking at him, he kept looking at me, and was like, should we do this, I don't know. So Viola spoke up, and she said, now listen, kids, I want to tell you something. She said, you both look like you're not sure you want to do this. She said, why don't you take a few more days to think about it? Well, that guy about had a fit, because he thought sure we were going to sign up that night to buy that house. So we said, yeah, that might be a good idea. So we left. The next Sunday, we went out looking again, and that's when we found the house on Tucson. And we went in the Bethel's house, which was a display house at that time. And I think maybe it had a little bit different kitchen layout. Was their kitchen different than ours?
I think so, yeah.
And we loved the house because it had 2 full bathrooms. Everything else we had looked at had a bath and a half. And we really liked the idea of having 2 bathtubs, because we already had 3 kids. And it was just not that much difference from the other house that we almost signed up for. And we said, no, this is the house we want. If we can manage it, this is the house we would like. And so that was like divine providence or what? Because we could have easily signed up for that, and then you kids would have been raised in different schools, and you know what I mean? Our whole life could have been different.
Yeah.
So
That was 59.
yes, and we had to wait for the house to be built.
So you picked a lot.
We picked the lot, and we really, Dad went there every night. As soon as he'd get off of work at Jimmy Simonella's store, he'd go out there and see what they'd done that day. If he liked what they'd done and then if he didn't like something, he'd let them know. And they would check. Those guys, they were really, it was called Grillian Brothers or something, was the builder. Never heard of them, but I think they did a good job on that house. And I think it was because they knew we were there all the time watching what they were doing. So that's how we got that house. And
What did you pay for the house?
the house was $16,250. And right after we bought, it went up to $16,500. So we got a little bit of a bargain. But
in the end, when did you sell that house? How long did you live there?
39 years. I actually thought we would die in that house. I did not think we would ever move. So,
39 years, and you bought it in 59, so that's 89.
96 or 97 we sold it. 1996? Something like that. Yeah. His dad had retired. North County was getting to be not the best place to live. So we just decided to move, which shocked me. I didn't think we would.
And that's when you moved to Moscow Mills.
Mm-hmm. And we were there 5 years. It was a nice place to live, but it was too far out for me. It's okay,
If Dad wouldn't have died, I guess you'd still be there.
probably, because he loved it there. Well, no. Actually, that's another part of the story.
Yeah, you were going to move and...
Because
You're hanging on one.
I was saying that we were out there, well, 5 years, but I guess it must have been the beginning of maybe the 4th year. He decided to fix the basement because you know him, he wanted everything really nice. So he worked a whole year on that basement. Rob Felhar came out and put up the studs and stuff for us, and then Dad did all the rest of the work. Put in a really nice bathroom, which he got help with that with the plumbing because he couldn't do plumbing. Had it all carpeted. Well, part of it was carpeted and part was tile. And like I said, he worked almost a whole year on it. And one day I said to him, you know, I think we ought to sell this place and get out of here. And he said, you crazy? Why? And I said, because if something happens to you, I don't know if it was the Lord giving me a premonition or something. I says, if something happens to you, I'm going to be stuck out here by myself. Because I figure we're 50 miles away from the kids. I said, that's a 100-mile round trip for them to come out here and see me. I said, how often do you think they're going to come? You know? And he says, well, I don't know. I just put a whole year's work in that basement and this and that. And he loved the yard. He just loved that yard. And he said, I don't know. I got to think about this. So I kept just every once in a while I'd give him a little jab, you know, about it. Yeah, I don't want to be stuck on here by myself. You know, so finally one day he said, which shocked me, he said, well, if you really feel that way, he says, we'll start looking around for something else, closer. So we came, every once in a while we'd take a ride and we'd look at this subdivision or that subdivision, you know, looking for a place that we thought we would like. We actually saw this house, this house right up the street was the display house. As soon as I walked in it, I knew I loved it. And he really liked it too. The only thing he did not like about it was that we had to pay the monthly fee and all the yard work was done for you because Mr. Macho Man wanted to do his own yard work, which he loved to do the yard work. But he didn't realize he's getting older and he wasn't going to be able to do the yard work much longer anyway. So he said, no, we won't sign up for this. We'll look some more. So then we went down a few blocks down here behind the Walgreens is a subdivision called Spring Orchard. And we looked and looked and we finally picked a lot there. Decided we'd have a house built there. And he liked that because there was no association. You didn't have to pay a monthly fee, and you did your own yard work. And that's what he wanted. So I said, well, I don't care because I just want to get out of Moscow Mills because I don't want to stay out there if something happens to you. And he keeps saying, well, why do you think something's going to happen to me? I said, because were of an age where something could happen to either one of us. I mean, you're 71 and I was 69. So finally, after we went back and forth from that place 3 or 4 or 5 times, I don't know how many times we went. And on that Sunday, let's see, that would have been April 21st of 2002, we went there. We picked out all our colors and all how you pick your cabinets and whatever you want in the house, and signed the papers and gave I think it was $17,000 deposit, because you had to put a certain percentage of something down. And we were all set that we were going to build that house, sell the other one, and move. And he had it scheduled so that at 11 o'clock on the morning of the 22nd, this guy that he had met and was friends with is Anderson Real Estate Agency. Actually, we met him through his mother, who had property, who let Dad hunt on their property. He got to be friends with that guy, and he said, yeah, you come out here and hunt anytime you want. So when we decided we were going to sell the house, he was going to have the son, Anderson, list it, and be the agent or whatever. And he was scheduled to come to our house at 11 o'clock that Monday morning. So he got up at 4:30 in the morning, because it was the first day of turkey season, and he went out turkey hunting. And the last thing he said to me was, because I was in bed and he was walking out the bedroom door, and he said, I'll see you later, babe. I'll be back about 10. So I'm laying there sleeping, He goes off turkey hunting, and about 8 o'clock, well, actually I was laying in bed. I was like half awake, half asleep. And I heard all these sirens going by on MM, because they went all the time. And I thought, gee, I wonder what happened. The sirens, guys are going by. So a few minutes later, I hear this boom, boom, boom on my front door. And I thought, he got a turkey, and he's coming to show me the turkey, because he always was so proud when he wanted to show it to me, the turkey. So I got up and I got to the front door, opened the door, and here's a neighbor, actually, of the house that he crashed into. He knocked the basketball court down. She was it her house? Yeah, it was her house. She was shaking like a leaf, and she was going, Angelo, Angelo. And I thought, well, she needs something. I says, he's not here. I said, he's out turkey hunting. Because he's always telling everybody, if you need anything, give me a call. So I thought she needed him for something. She said, no, Angelo. And I said, is he dead? And she didn't want to say yes, and she couldn't say no, And she was going like this, and then I could see way down at the end of the corner down there in front of her house was the ambulance and all that. And I said, that must be the sirens I just heard that had gone by on MM. So I hurried, I was in my pajamas, so I ran to the bedroom, put on a pair of jeans or something, I don't know what I did. And we ran up the street, and my neighbor was just kind of 2 doors up, was just coming out of her house to go to work. And she says, get in the car, I'll drive you down there. So we jumped in her car, went down, and just as I got down there, they were shoving him in the ambulance, and they closed the door. I think he was already dead. And they didn't want me to see him there. They said, we're going to the hospital. So my neighbor said, I'll take you. And I said, well, you have to be at work. She said, don't worry, I'm taking you. So we went down, kind of followed the ambulance, went to the hospital. And they wouldn't let me go in, because they said they were working on him, Because then when I saw him, he had a shot in his arm and a shot in his chest. They must have put that stuff in to try to revive him. So anyway, They put me in a waiting room, and that girl stayed with, both of them stayed with, and then all the neighbors started coming. I don't know, it must have been 10, 12 people there. And in the meantime, I had called Candy. I said, something's wrong with Dad. They won't let me see him. We're here at the hospital. Well, she said she knew right away. Is when I said they won't let me see him, she figured he was dead. So she came as soon as she could, but it was a good half hour, I guess, before she got there. And they waited until she got there to tell me that he was dead. And then they let us go in to see him. And then they said, well, who do you want to, where are we going to send him? What are we going to? And I said, we'll call Jim Blossom, because he was our friend from church, was in our Sunday school class.
He owned the funeral home there in
Yeah,
Moscow,
yeah.
in Troy.
And Candy told me they went to a wake out there just a couple weeks ago, the same funeral home. So they're still in business.
Yeah, whenever I go up to my farm, there's a big billboard. They have a billboard
Still
next to
have
the
Jim and
highway.
Mary Blossom. Yeah. So that was the story of, and it was a shock. I mean, because
So what was it?
that killed him.
Yeah.
Well, I probably should have had an autopsy done, but I didn't. But I just assume his birth certificate, his death certificate, not birth certificate, says cardiac arrest. I think it was a massive heart attack.
So essentially a heart attack.
Because his grandfather, the old man, Gibraltar, Grandma always said he was sitting on a chair and he fell off and he was dead. He fell off the chair and he was dead. And Uncle Frank Gibraltar died the same way too. He went out to sweep the driveway and he fell over and he was dead. So it runs in that Gibraltar side of the family. So anyway, I say for the person that dies that way, it's a blessing, but it's not for the family.
Yeah.
But I personally, myself, wish I would die the same way, because it's a lot easier than laying in a bed for 3 or 4 years and getting treatments
Suffering,
and
yeah.
suffering and shots. But that's something we don't know, so
It's up to God.
that's right. If I guess.
So then after that, what happened with you would sign the contract on the other?
Yes, we had signed the contract on Sunday, and he died Monday morning. And Tim Hogan came. They all rushed to the house, and I said, Tim, you got to call that girl at Spring Orchard and tell her that he died, and could I please get my money back, because I didn't want that house with where I had to do the yard work, and I already knew that I really liked this house. So because I knew that I would get out of there, that I wouldn't stay there. So Tim called her, and that poor girl went to pieces, because we had been dealing with her, and he was always teasing her. She, a cute little gal, you know how he was. And she says, well, I'll see what I can do. And I did get the money back, but it took about 3 weeks or a month before they gave it back to me. I think when you asked me, you said something about, well, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I'm getting out of here, and I think I know the place I want. So, because I didn't look at anything else. I came straight here
Yeah, I remember.
that time, because that was up my alley. I mean, pay the fee and get the work done. I can't do that kind of work outside.
So then you sold the house at Moscow Mills.
Yeah, you and I sold it with that crazy lady that I almost threw out of the
I
house.
remember that. She was crazy.
I got so mad at that woman, I was ready to just throw her out. She was a little nuts. It's a wonder that deal went through.
Yeah.
And now I hear that house is in bankruptcy.
Really?
Yeah, they probably trashed it and ruined it, I bet. So, But he did put an indoor underground swimming pool in the yard.
I went by it not that long ago. Sherry and I, you know, we work in the prisons,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to do a training once a year, and they give out prizes, and we got a prize for a coupon, like a $30 certificate, at a restaurant in Moscow.
Harry J's, I
Harry
bet.
J's.
They got good food there.
So we had it for months and months and months, and finally I said to Sherry, well, we got to use this coupon. So we rode out there, had a dinner, and I said, well, let's go by and see the house. And,
Did it look like anybody was living in it?
yeah, it looked
Yeah.
occupied, and it looked nice. I mean, it wasn't all
It wasn't trashed?
overgrown or no.
Well, good. I hope whoever's there is taking care of it. Because our house on Teesson sure got trashed after we sold that one. But I hear it's back in good shape now. So, I don't know.
Somebody moved in and fixed it up.
Yeah, I hear they gutted the whole thing.
So why don't you, so you kind of talked about how you got to the house on Teesson and then got out of it, but just maybe just talk about, I don't know, just talk about your life. I mean, you raised 6 kids, so talk about, you know, the kids, where you worked, what you know, just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, let's see. After when we moved in the house at 740 Teesson, and this house is 730. It kind of surprised me when I moved here. Anyway, I was a stay-at-home mom. People was working like crazy. Finally had 2 and 3 jobs at a time, selling fence, working at Del Monte 8 hours, and then go working at Target or Villa Marie Market or this market or that market 4 or 5 hours in the evening. It was pretty rough. And then Mary Kay was born. You were 4 and a half, I think, when Mary Kay was born. These are almost 5 years apart, same as me and Jack. And well, they started school. Had to ride to school. Well, no, the first couple years they went to school at Armstrong, we couldn't get bus service, but the house, Graham's next door, could ride the bus. That made me so mad, because I had to take the kids to school every day and pick them up because it was just too far to walk. And I called up the guy at the school, I don't know if the school board or somebody I called. And I said, well, how would you know if I just let my kids go out and get on the bus and ride? And he said, well, I probably wouldn't know anything about it till the bus was involved in an accident. And then there'd be big trouble because there'd be kids on that bus that weren't supposed to be on it. So by that time, I had that old junker car of Aunt Angie's. It had gotten pretty old. When she married George, she let us buy the car for $100, I think it was. And so I drove his to Armstrong, picked us up.
Didn't we started off at Russell School, not Armstrong, didn't we?
You're right. Yes, Russell School. Right. And then why did they switch you from?
Well, Armstrong it wasn't even built then. Then they built Armstrong.
Oh, they built
later,
Armstrong,
I
and
think.
then that's when you had to go down there?
I think.
Yeah, because at Armstrong we did get bus service. So I was glad when you got switched to Armstrong. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you get old you forget. But I don't know, other than that, I mean, we just had a pretty normal life, I guess.
Why don't talk about your 6 kids. So how many kids did you have then?
6. Sam, Candy, which we would have had one extra one if that baby had lived. And then you and Mary Kay and Steve and Julie. It was pretty hectic, but I kept up. And then Dad came home one day and told me one of the checkers, because I had gotten to know pretty many of the checkers at Del Monte, because that's the place I shop, because he worked there. And he says, I think her name was Carolyn. He said, Carolyn's going to quit at the store. And I said, oh, you think I could get the job? He said, how are you going to work with all these kids? I said, actually, they're driving me crazy. I need to get out of this house. He said, well, join some clubs or something. I said, I'm not the club type person. If I'm going to be out of the house, I want to be making a few dollars. I don't want to go sit and listen to somebody talk about something. So he said, well, come in and talk to Evelyn, because at that time, Dave Markowitz had taken in this partner, or maybe he was a partner from the beginning. I don't know. It was Frank and his wife, Evelyn. Evelyn ran all the checkers. You know, she kept them going. And I knew her because I was shopping there all the time with all the kids in the cart and everything. So I went in and talked to her. I said, Evelyn, I said, I know how to check because I checked when we had our store for 5 years. I said, and I need a break from these kids. I said, could I get a job for a few hours a week, you know, because it had to be in the evenings, because Dad was working all day, and then I'd work 4 or 5 hours in the evening. She said, sure, we like to keep this a family store. So that's how I started working part-time. How
long did you work at Del Monte then?
Oh, I worked at Del Monte, I don't know. Well, in all, I worked 13 or 14 years as a checker part-time. But the last few were not at, when Del Monte closed, I got a job at IGA, working a few hours a week. And that guy was a mess. He was hard to work for, John. And then when IGA went out of it seemed like every store I worked for went out of business. When IGA closed, I saw an ad in the paper for a store opening on 367 in Parker Road, and it was a shop and save. And I think it mentioned Nick Sida's name for some reason. You know, he was a Del Monte guy. And I thought, darn, I'm going to go out there and see if I can get a job there. And I did. And they hired me because Nick knew me. And then it became a price chopper. And then it went back to being a shop and save. But I worked there 7 years because Julie was in college then, and there was no other all kids at home, you know, no kids at home, so. But it was just part-time too. But anyway, I wound up working like 13 or 14 years as a checker. I didn't think I'd ever get a pension, but I did. Because it's so and actually I got cheated out of 1.5 pension credits that they did not credit me for. Because at one time our contract had expired and we worked without a contract for over a year. And then when the new contract came in, they would not give us, it wasn't just me, it was everybody. They would not credit us with the time that we had worked without the contract. So.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your most recent adventure, your kidney adventure?
My miracle?
Yes.
From heaven? Mm-hmm. Well, I have had kidney problems for a long time. I knew my kidneys were not functioning like they should. I always went to the nephrologist, and all of a sudden let's see, it must have been January of 2012, my kidney function was 25%. It had come down to 25%, which is still, I mean, it's okay. You can live on 25%. You don't feel real good, but it's functionable. When I went for my checkup in June, because I was going every 6 months, when I went for my checkup in June, the doctor was quite concerned because every time you go, you get blood work before you go. So he was looking at the blood work and he said, I don't know why this has dropped the way it has. And I said, well, then I was getting nervous. I said, what do you mean it dropped? And he said, well, you were at 25% in January, now you're down to 14%. And I got pretty nervous, and he said, in fact, Candy had gone with me to that meeting for some reason. And he says, if this continues to drop the way it's dropped, he said, you'll be on dialysis by the end of the year. I said, I'm not doing that. Candy was sitting next to me. She said, Mom, I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And Dr. Young was looking at me. It's like I was crazy. And he kept talking with her, you know. I said, I'm not doing that. So
What were you thinking?
what was I thinking? That I was going to die is what I was thinking. And I had read some stuff about dialysis before, and I just had in my head that I'm not doing that. So anyway, I don't know what transpired. He said, well, you got to come back and we'll do my blood work and blah, 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 all this stuff's going on. And this is, like I said, this is in June. And in May of that same year, May 2012, Susan Licata, my niece by marriage to my nephew Tony Licata, had gotten in her head, she had seen this program on TV about one of these kidney chains, like they were going to do on me, when all these people, and then they hook them all up, and there's like, on the one she saw on TV, it was like 28 people or something. And it had all worked out, and she thought, what a neat thing to be able to give a kidney to somebody. And so she started the process of seeing if she could be a kidney donor at Loyola University in Chicago. And not knowing about me at all, you know, she just took it on her own self. And I just think it was a God thing, because I was down to 13%, that my kidneys were still dropping. I was down to 13%. And for some reason, in August of that same year, Sam talked to Tony Licata and said, oh, by the way, my mom's probably going to need a kidney transplant or dialysis or something. Her kidneys are really going down fast. And Tony said, well, Susan's trying to be a donor, a kidney donor. And Sam said, what? So anyway, Tony tells Susan, and Susan says, well, if I'm going to give a kidney, I'd rather give it to her than a stranger, you know. So she calls Candy, and she says, Candy, I hear about your mom's kidneys failing. She says, I'm trying to be a donor. She says, if they approve me, I want my kidney to go to her. Well, Candy told me, and I'm completely shocked. I said, well, yeah, I even couldn't talk for a minute, you know. I says, how's this working out like this? So then she's going for all her tests, and actually Loyola turned her down. They said she could not be a donor because I guess it's her left kidney. Let's see, which one did they took?
She had a stone.
She had a tiny, tiny stone in the bottom part of the kidney, and they were afraid that if they gave that kidney to somebody, that person could have trouble with the kidney stone. So she was really disappointed, but they told her, you could try some other hospitals that do transplants, because all of our criteria is not the same. Each hospital or each group has their own things that you have to meet. So I don't know how we got talking about Barnes. And I said, well, I'm going to get the paperwork to fill out to see if I could even be a candidate. Because at my age, I thought sure they'd say, no, you're not, we're not giving you a kidney. You know, so I got all the paperwork, and then it said on there, do you have a donor? Because basically, if you don't have a donor, you got to wait 3 to 5 years before you might be eligible. So I called Susan and I said, could I put your name down? Do you want me to put your name? I said, I don't want to presume anything, but you say you want me to have your kidney if you can give one. So then that's when she got connected with Barnes too, because I sent my application to Barnes. So then she got connected with Barnes. Well, it makes long story short, Barnes did approve her to be a donor, but they still had not approved me to be a recipient. They were still going through all the paperwork and all the tests, and I was being evaluated. I could be evaluated. So it wasn't until December, I guess, that I got a call from Barnes that they were putting me on the list. I could be evaluated. Or is that
A recipient.
that I could be a recipient? Yeah. And so then we ran into Susan and I were not a match, so they had to find somebody that her kidney would fit, and then somebody, you know, that would fit me.
So they're going to trade the kidneys.
They put us on the kidney donor swap list or something. And I found out later that her and I were only the 34th one that Barnes has done on the kidney swap. They've done thousands of transplants. But on that swap thing, they just started doing that down there not long ago, and we were the 34th couple. But anyway, we ran into a couple other, first they said they were going to do that 9-way swap.
That fell through. They had the first kidney they had for you.
Yeah, because it was, that would have been 9 donors, 9 recipients, so that's 18 people they had to work with. And they worked on it about a month, I guess, and then they called and said, that fell through, we can't do that. I mean, we couldn't work it out, it didn't work. Somebody either got really sick or I don't know what the deal was. So then we got the call about Susan's kidney was going to Minnesota, and then they gave us the date of April 30th. So we weren't even on that list that long, maybe from December till April. The whole process was exceedingly fast for a kidney transplant. And then I found out that my kidney was coming from Minnesota, so it might be that those 2 people over there were the same as Susan and I, you know, where they were trying to give their kidney, you know, but they didn't match, so they had to find. So I don't know how it all worked out. I just think it's a miracle from God, because, and another thing, Susan's had started her procedure to have all her tests on May 1st, and our surgeries were scheduled for April 30th. One more day, she would have had to have all her tests over again. They're only good for 1 year.
The timing worked out perfect.
Yeah, how could that happen if God wasn't involved? I mean, for everything that went backwards, then we jump forward, you know. So all I can say, it's a miracle. I can't think of any other word.
That's awesome. So presumably, disease,
He did.
his kidneys failed.
He also had black lung, which might have speeded him up more, you know, of dying. But
But if this bad heart is on the Gibraltar side, and Dad died, it could be that the kidney issue came to you from your father.
I think it did. I think I inherited his genes. And my brother didn't have anything wrong with his kidneys, or my mom.
And do any of your children have kidney issues?
Yeah, they do. And I keep telling him to go get checked, and he don't go. He doesn't go.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I need to go see. I want to see your nephrologist since he knows your case.
Yeah, my next appointment with him is December 5th. That'll be the first time I'm seeing him after the kidney transplant. Yeah.
I wonder if I could call and get an appointment on the 5th and just go with you
You probably could.
and see you.
If
and
you
then
call
tell
now,
him-
that's plenty of time.
Yeah. Well, I'll get his name and phone number from you.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Dan Young.
Yeah. So probably not a whole lot of people get qualified for a transplant at the age of 79.
That's why I was totally amazed, because
Pretty amazing the way the whole thing worked out.
actually I was sitting at that table filling out all that paperwork, because they sent me, I don't know, it was 10 or 12 sheets of paper. You know, I had to answer all these questions. And I'm doing this for nothing, because they're not going to accept me for a kidney transplant. But they
Well,
did.
it could be.
But I tell
The big
you,
thing that worked to your advantage was the fact that you had a donor.
I had a donor, right.
If you didn't have a donor,
Right.
it might have been tougher.
Yeah, it would have been way tougher. I'd still be waiting. Yeah. So God just works in mysterious ways, I tell you.
So God wanted you to have a kidney. He wasn't done with you yet, because we needed you to stay around to cook sauce for TJ.
Oh, really? Well, I wish he'd do a little bit more work and get rid of these swollen feet and this dizzy head. It's the only two complaints I have, because my kidney's working fine. Thank God. Thank God that it continues. They said I got a really good, healthy one, so I don't know. That's what the doctor said.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I need to send a thank you card to Minnesota. I can send a card, but it has to go to this place. I can't tell them who I am or sign the card with my name. I can just...
And then they forward it to your donor.
And then if they want to get in touch more, then they have to go through a process. In a way, I would like to know who it was, and in a way, I wouldn't. So I don't know.
Why would you not?
Oh, because I don't know, it's just weird. But you know, I never think about it, that I have this strange body part inside my body that my body knows is not my own. And that's why all of the medicine I have to take. Because if I stop taking that medicine, that kidney will shrivel up and,
Have to take
Okay.
it the rest of your life.
yeah. And it's not easy swallowing all those pills. 20 a day right now I'm on.
Oh gosh.
I was on 25. They cut a few of them out. But they told me they cannot cut anymore, because I wanted them to cut some more, and they said, no, can't do it.
Well, it's a bummer, but it's a small price to pay in exchange for the blessing you've received.
Well, I just can't imagine these people that are willing to give up their body parts. You know, that's a big deal.
It's pretty noble.
Ooh. I don't think I could do it. I don't know. But there are these people now, they were on TV the other day, and they're looking for where they swab your mouth. These people that have, they need a blood exchange. I don't understand. I can't think right now what it is.
They're trying to find people to donate.
To go on, to be on the list.
I saw a man on the news the other day. he wears a billboard on the front and back and walks around, stands on street corners, and it says,
About-
"My wife needs a kidney. Please help." Like he's trying to find a kidney because
That's awful. Hope somebody helps him. Wow.
So you talked a little bit about your kids. Is that the finish of your miracle story?
Think so.
So what about your grandkids? How many grandkids do you have?
18.
Did you ever think you'd have that many grandkids?
No, but people always used to say, you and I will be gone, but our blood will be on this earth forever. He's right.
So
And now, how many greats are there already? About 9 or 10, I think. Probably going to wind up with about 50 before that's over with.
Do you think you can name the names of your 18 grandchildren?
Sure. Tina, Nicole, Stephanie, Miriam. See, I got the shakes. See that? That's tremors. That's from one of those stupid medicines I take. Okay, Tina, Nicole, Stephanie, Miriam, Abby, Jonathan, TJ, Andy, Sammy. Mary Kay's got Philip, Ben. Is there another boy? Philip and
Daniel, the oldest.
Daniel. How could I forget that?
You started with Philip.
Yeah, I started. Okay, Daniel, Philip, Ben, Catherine, Joy. Who's the next kid on my? Oh, Steve has Marshall and Mary Ann, and Julie has Sissy and Max.
Very good.
Yeah, and I can even name the grandbaby, the great grandbabies.
Who are they?
They're Elena, the twins, Nora, and Angelina. Couldn't think of it. Lena. Maybe I can't name them all. Bella, Mia, little Nino. So that's 10. 10 or 11. Did I miss anybody?
Yes. My newest granddaughter.
What newest grand? Oh, yes, Eva. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, see, my brain is slipping.
And Abby's pregnant, isn't she?
And yeah, Abby's pregnant.
It's an awful lot to remember.
Dude.
And you've always been incredibly good with dates. I'm amazed. I'm not going to ask you to name every one of their dates.
Birthdays?
Yeah, but you're very good at that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for example, could you name, since you forgot Daniel, his feelings will be hurt. Do you know
April
when his,
14th.
Okay, so
But I don't know the year. I can't remember the year, but his birthday is April 14th.
yeah.
I probably know them all if I could sit down and write them down, but just to think of them off the top of my head. Yes, so far my brain is pretty fair. I notice I've been forgetting a lot of stuff since I'm on that medicine, but they say the medicine can make you do that. You know. Because right after I first got home, I was forgetting a lot of stuff. I'd be talking and I'd go blank. And I thought, God, is this what people with Alzheimer's feel
Well,
like?
I think you're in remarkable shape for 80, because I'll tell you, I'm 56, and I can't believe how much I struggle sometimes with my memory.
Yeah, it's hard. Now, my mom lived till 95, and her brain was still good. Her body failed her with all the things that happened to her.
Yeah, she was sharp as a
But
tack.
my dad was 63, so if he would have lived to be old, I don't know how maybe his brain would have gone bonkers, or maybe he'd have been good. So I don't know. Don't know. That's really the hard part of life. You don't know what's going to happen to you. You know?
Right.
One minute you're fine, and then the next minute you're like flat on the ground, like that day I fell.
Well, we live in a crazy world, so...
Oh,
I
it's
guess
so horrible.
That's where faith in God comes in, and
Oh,
you trust God and do your best, and what else can you do?
I don't know.
What else?
Well, I was gonna ask three things. One is, like a coin has two sides, heads and tails. So life has blessings and life has hardships, you know. So which one do you wanna speak to first?
Blessings.
So what would you say about that? What do you feel like have been your greatest blessings in life?
Well, my children and the kidney transplant. What more can you ask for, you know? I don't know what else. I think I've had a good life. I've had 3 brand new houses to move into. I mean, not big, fancy, dancy houses, but they're nice houses. So, some people have had it a lot harder. And when I hear of the problems some people have with their kids, I've really been blessed. I mean, sure, there's been bumpies, but no
Catastrophes.
heroin addicts, and not, at least not that I know of. Nobody's told me if there is. Daniel's accident was pretty bad. I don't know if that kid's ever going to get the full use of that leg. You know, just go with the flow. That's all you can do. And pray. Pray a lot. I don't know.
Was your family religious growing up?
My mother always made me go to the Catholic school, except for the time when the nun beat me up and she took me out for 2 years. But no, they never went to church, you know, as a family.
Did your dad ever go?
I don't really remember him ever going to church, but I think when he got sick, the priest would come to the house and bring communion and go in to visit him at the hospital. And but no, they were not. I know they were Catholic, because that's what all Italians were, Catholic. And I don't know. But she made sure, let's see, Jack went to Catholic school too, yeah, from till 8th grade, but then there was no Catholic high school in DuQuoin. You had to go to public high school. She made sure we made our first communion and got confirmed, and
So Nana was never, she never was real demonstrative in her faith, but I experienced her as a woman of faith.
oh, I think so.
When I went to Bible school, I mean, I would talk to her about God quite a bit, you know, about spiritual things, and she would watch Billy Graham and tell
Oh
me
yeah,
about it.
yes,
And I talked with her about the gospel.
And my
I believe
grandmother-
she really understood the gospel.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Who Jesus was and what he did.
Um,
Of course, your dad, I never knew him. He died 2 years before I was born. So
I always had the feeling that my dad was very skeptical of priests. He didn't trust priests because there probably had been some event or something in Italy where they discovered that one of the priests was homosexual or attacking girls. I don't know, because they never talked about it. But when I was a kid and I went to Catholic school, man, I did everything those nuns said to do. You know, we don't eat meat on Friday. And sometimes my mom would fix meat on Friday because they didn't really follow all those rules. And I said, I can't eat meat on Friday. The nuns are... My dad would say, don't believe everything they tell you. He said, you go up there right now and that priest is eating a steak. So, you know, he just from little things like that, I thought, he doesn't really trust priests for some reason. And I'm thinking it's, like I said, from something in Italy that happened.
made him suspicious.
Yeah. And look at all the trouble
Yeah, right,
we've had.
sure.
So he was doing a premonition of all this stuff.
What is the story about this nun beating you up? Do you have
Oh,
memories of
you
that?
haven't heard my nun story? Oh my gosh. Well, I turned 5 years old on April 13th, see, because that's my birthday. So my mom sends me to kindergarten at the Catholic school. And I guess we started in September then, like they always used to. Well, I had never been that close to a nun. And in DuQuoin at that time, we had the real nuns that wore the big black habits. And I was scared to death of the nun. And this nun that ran the kindergarten and first grade in DuQuoin sort of had a reputation for being rough on the kids. I don't know why they kept her there as long as they did. But anyway, I go in the room for the kindergarten and first grade. I think it was all in one room. And my brother was in the next room because they must have had like fourth grade over there or something. So, and I think we only had a half a day of school that first day. And I was sitting there in my seat, and I was sort of probably trembling because I was scared of this thing walking around in this black outfit. And it got close to the time that we were supposed to be dismissed. And she was writing on the blackboard, so her back was to me. So I must have figured I was going to leave. I got up out of my seat, walked to the door. Well, in the meantime, she had turned around and saw me going to the door, and she says, "Where are you going?" And I probably started crying. I said, "I'm going home. I want my brother." And she came down the aisle to me, and I think she grabbed me by the back of my hair and said, "Go to your seat." And I kicked her in the shin because she had me by my hair. Just about that time, the door opened and my brother was there because he was supposed to walk me home because I'm a 5-year-old kid, you know. And so we left. I mean, she let us leave. And so Jack's taking me home by the hand, you know. And we get home and he says, "Mom, the nun beat her up." So what do you mean? She did slap me. She had slapped me on my face. I actually had a hand mark. Maybe that's when I kicked her, when she slapped me. It was either when she had my hair or she slapped me. I don't remember. But anyway, what do you mean she got beat up? So Jack said, "Yeah, and Sister Mary Daniels hit her because she wanted to leave. She was scared." So my mom grabs me by my arm. Vroom. Back we go to that school. She marches in that school. I can vaguely remember this, her having me by my arm and practically dragging me. She was walking so fast. She marches in that school. Of course, everybody's gone because we had a half a day of school. Of course, the nuns are there because they live there. "I want to see Sister Superior." Oh, somebody runs and gets the Sister Superior, and she says, and I could still see the mark on my face. She says, "See what that nun did," or Mary Daniels, whatever, that was her name, did to my little girl. And so they had a discussion, blah, blah, blah. And my mom said, "That's it, I'm taking her out of here. She's not going to go to school here." So I don't know if the nun got in trouble. That nun should have been fired. But anyway, she took me to public school the next day, and I went kindergarten, first and second grade to the public school. Well, in third grade, you make your first communion, and you have to get all the instructions, and you know, they teach you all that stuff. So she wanted me to make my first communion, so she takes me back to the Catholic school. Says, "I want to see Sister Superior." So they have a discussion. She says, "I want her to come back and go to school here because I want her to make her first communion. And I know she's got to have all the instructions and all that." And she said, "But I'll tell you one thing, if anybody lays a hand on her, one finger," he says, "you will see me again." She read them the riot act. And Sister Superior said, "Oh, no, don't worry, Mrs. Licata. Nobody will touch her." And so then I went from third grade through eighth grade at the Catholic school. And then I went to public high school. Yeah, that was my kindergarten nun beat me up story. Okay, well, when we first moved to Hazelwood, there was no Catholic church in the area, and we were Catholic. And Sam had gone to St. Mary Magdalene on Kings Highway, that was up the street from the store, to kindergarten. And when he finished kindergarten, that's when we moved. So there was no Catholic church around our house there in Hazelwood. St. Ferdinand was the only Catholic church up and running at that time in the whole area out there. And so we went to church after we got moved in. We went to church on a Sunday morning. Had Sam by one hand, Candy by one hand. You were in a stroller. So after church, we went to the priest's house to find out how we would get you kids enrolled in Catholic school, because that's the only school there was. So we knocked on the priest's house, and one of the priests answered the door. Come on in, you know. We said, well, we're new out here. We'd like to get our kids enrolled in school, Catholic school. And he says, what's wrong with public school? Take them to public school. And we were shocked, you know, because they always want you to be, you know, in with them. So anyway, Dad says, what do you mean taking the public school? He says, we have no room here. The guy was frustrated, I guess, because a lot of people were infiltrating that area at that time. And I guess they were getting so many requests, and they didn't have room. But he didn't say it in a nice way. You know, he says, take it to public school. And Dad says, well, Father, he says, you see there's 3 little kids here. He says, and we might have more. He says, if he starts, pointing to Sam, because he was the only one that was old enough to go, he says, if he starts public school, they're all going to go to public school. The rest, he said, because we ain't going to switch if we go start one way, you know. He said, that's fine, they'll get a good education. So we turned around and we left. And you kids went to Russell School. Sam went to Russell. So, yeah.
So they didn't want us at the Catholic church.
But we still kept going to church. And then they finally built St. Martin's. And they built a school there too, but we weren't going to change after everybody was already, you know, they have different curriculums and different, but I made you go to religion class every Saturday. You just hated it. Then I think they switched it to Wednesday nights or something. That worked out a little better than the Saturday deal.
I remember going to St. Martin de Porres. I remember going to religion class every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We'd hop the fence,
Mm-hmm.
walk down Undercliff to the church. And I remember going to church with you almost every Sunday.
Yeah.
Dad would go on occasion, but he didn't go to church nearly
Probably
as much.
if he
course.
wasn't going hunting, he'd go to church with us.
During rabbit season, he would hunt most Sundays.
That's what I'm saying. He was going hunting all the time. Yeah.
So then, later on, when Sam met Vicky, and then started going to non-denominational church and all that, then we all started going to the Bible study, and Sam and I ended up going to Bible college. And
Well,
all
we
that.
thought you were in a cult. We didn't know it was we didn't know what it was.
So how would you put words to that whole transition from your Catholic faith to Protestant faith? I mean, do you feel like your faith is deeper now than it's ever been?
Yeah, because I've been studying the Bible. In the Catholic Church, you never studied the Bible. You just listened to what the priest said. That's why Martin Luther left the Catholic Church, because the people couldn't have Bibles. Only the priests could have the Bibles. That was one of the reasons. He might
That
have
was a
had,
big deal, yeah. He
Yeah.
wanted to translate
And I
the
think
Bible into the common language
Right,
so people could read
right,
the Bible.
right,
They
and-
wanted to keep it Latin.
and they wouldn't let him, so he started the Lutheran. And I think he didn't like those indulgences. They were selling indulgences or something. I don't know. I know a little bit about that, but not very much. Okay, I was going to say that I feel like I've been saved since I was in 3rd grade at the Catholic school. Because when I went there, the priest would come. We had our classes, and the priest would come over to prepare us for First Communion. And he would talk to us, and because before you can receive communion, you have to go to confession. And he was explaining confession to us, is that you come in and you say your sins to me, but he was I don't take away your sins. Jesus takes away your sins. But they have this, you have to go to confession. That's one of their things. And I was sitting there in the seat thinking, no, I don't have to go to confession. I can just talk to Jesus and tell him I'm sorry for my sins. Why do I have to talk to you? But he explained it right, Father Hafner. I remember, I can see him today in my mind telling us that he didn't take away the sins, but you have to go to confession. So
you think even at that early age, you
3rd grade is.
you understood who Jesus was and what he did.
Because they teach you that every day in Catholic school. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Catholic religion. I mean, I know they have the works thing, but they believe in all the right stuff. You know, the virgin birth and the Trinity and Jesus.
Christ.
Yes, the
Death
Jesus.
of Christ.
Yes, they do believe all that. So they got all these other weird things they throw in, but can't eat meat on Friday. Who says you can't eat meat on Friday? Yeah, I mean, there was a time when women couldn't go in church if they didn't have a scarf or a hat on their head. I mean, crazy things like that. But yeah, that's the way I feel. I hope the Lord feels that way too. But yeah, you can get good religion in Catholic school.
So you talked about the blessings. What about the hardships?
Well, there's hardships in every life, I think. I mean, it's not cotton candy all the time, you know. Of course, the worst thing, I guess, was losing the baby and then losing Dad, the way he just went away. Flew away and I was left. So, other than that, you know, losing my mom, that was bad. Never dreamt that in 2 months I'd be a widow. That was a blow. When you realize you're a widow, you know, it's like, wait a minute here.
Well, especially, I mean, you were married 49 years, right?
49 and a half. Didn't get the last 6 months in. Yeah. Yep. I'm going to ask God about that.
What's that?
Why I didn't get the last 6 months. Could have waited. Could have waited 6 more months. So I could have been married 50 years. Guess he had a reason. I'll find out when I get there. Another thing I'm going to ask, but they say when you get there you won't ask questions because you'll understand. I don't know if that's true. I'm going to ask him why some people just drop dead, like Dad did, like Uncle Jack did, and why some people have to suffer so much and so long before they get out of this crazy life.
Like Grandma.
Yes.
And Gracia.
Yeah, and
She
so
suffered pretty terribly.
so many people. You see what they're going through: chemo and radiation, and getting this part cut off, and this. How do people go through that? You know, and why do they have to go through it and other ones don't? how does he make the distinction of who gets out easy and who has to suffer? I don't know. That's 2 questions I have on my agenda.
Well, those are pretty good questions.
Oh
Do you
my.
think God chooses? You think it's up to
I don't
God?
know. I don't know. I just want to know why. I don't know why.
What, you said you had 3 things, was there something else?
Yeah, the last one I was thinking was in terms of like advice that you would give. Let's just assume, me is 1 right now, let's assume she's 35 years from now, she watches this. You're her great-grandma, you've lived 80 years, what advice would you give?
Meemaw might still be alive in 35 years. You'd be 150.
I'd be 115.
It's conceivable.
They shot a 107-year-old man. Was it yesterday or the other day?
Yeah, I read about that.
Did you see that?
shot
I
him.
think it was in St. Louis. Well, he started some kind of commotion, or they went to his house or something, and he had a gun, and was he going to attack the policeman?
He shot at the police.
He actually shot it. So they
107?
had to shoot him.
They
killed him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, live 107 years and then get shot by a policeman.
Isn't that crazy? I didn't hear the story.
Yeah, it was just on the news yesterday.
So what advice would you offer your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? What do they need to know? What have you learned in life?
Well, I don't know that I've actually learned anything, but it's, I think you just have to trust the Lord. You have to be honest. You have to love your family. And just like Mia says, no, not Mia, Bella said, you got to do the best you can. I have told that story to more people, and everybody thinks it's great.
What is the story? Tell the story.
When we were sitting at your table for family dinner that one night, and you started talking about some man, you didn't mention his name, who's having all these problems, and he's beside himself, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. And little Bella pops in and said, well, he just has to do the best he can. And everybody's just, what did she say? I've told it to 4 or 5 of my friends, and now they're saying it. You know, just have to do the best you can.
It's pretty good advice, huh?
Yeah, what else?
Out of the mouth of a babe.
What else can you do? You know, try to be honest with people. Don't try to be a clown. People knows when you're fake, you know. It comes across if you're being, but some people can fool people too. Like that one guy gypped all these old people out of a ton of money. That's awful.
What about advice for kids' marriages, your great-grandchildren's marriages?
Oh gosh.
How did you live with people for 49 years? What marriage is challenging? Did you have challenges with people?
Well, I think everybody has challenges with their mates. I mean, you ain't going to go through life on a gravy train or nothing. Sure, I'd get mad at him, but he knew when I was mad at him, and he'd always be sorry about it. So, and I'm sure he got upset with me too, but I don't know why, because I'm perfect. Oh, no. It's just, you got to do the best you can. That's all you can do. You can't, I don't know. It's difficult. I'm not a philosopher or a psychic, so each person has to just live the best way they can and be the best person they can be and love God. That's the most important.
So you were committed to Dad the entire marriage, 49 years.
Yes, my goodness. I'm still committed to him.
Through the,
all these old women around here are getting married. I think they're
They are,
absolutely
really.
out of their mind. 2 of them now have gotten married. The one next door got married. You know why she married the guy? Because he's rich.
do they find them at?
Well,
They
her
meet
daughter.
'em at church?
Her daughter found this one for her, and the one down the street, oh, she knew him and his wife, and then his wife died. And she went to a wake one night, and he was there, and he started talking to her, and they started dating, but she dated him for 2 years before she married him.
So,
She didn't jump
so
in and
you
get
wouldn't
married.
be interested even if you found a rich guy?
I don't think. At my age, 80 years old now, my belly slit from here to here. I don't think so. No. And now I'm used to not cooking for anybody, not having to do anybody's laundry. You know, I don't want to do all that again.
Do you ever feel lonely?
Oh, sure, I get lonesome once in a while, but I just read a book or watch TV. It's fine. I don't.
You know, your marriage covenant is until death do you part.
I know, but I
So you're
don't.
technically released from the covenant.
I don't feel that way.
But you feel like you're still married to Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I respect that. I think I'd feel the same way. I'm not sure, but
Well, you're a
God
man.
forbid-
In a
God
in a
forbid.
year, men are out looking for another woman. Some of them not even that long. I don't think. I think women are better at.
it's hard enough to put up with one man in your life, let alone get another one.
Yeah, why would a person want to do that?
Nana was never interested in another
No.
man. Just think, I mean, she was pretty young when he died.
Oh, she was only 48 years old when my dad died.
And she lived another 47 years.
Yeah. She could have easily gotten married again. No. I was 69 when Dad died, and that was old. Old enough. Nope, I'm not interested.
Well, as long as you have a quality of life and you enjoy your life and you stay pretty busy with church and you have your friends and all your kids and grandkids coming and going, and so between everything you stay pretty busy.
Oh, yeah. That stupid phone hasn't rung that much in one day for I don't know how long.
It just says wireless.
What's the number?
314-302-2651.
I don't know who it is. If I don't recognize the number, I don't
See
answer.
if they leave a message.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
You know, when you got married, I've heard you didn't know how to cook, so
Right.
talk about how you
Right.
learned how to cook,
Right.
what people
Well,
like.
when I got married, like I said, I had only turned 19. I was never interested. I was interested more in baking, I think, than cooking. I used to bake cookies and make fudge and bake cake, you know, before I was married. I always liked to do that, but I never did actually cook. So consequently, when I got married, I didn't know how to cook. So I don't know. I would just get books and try recipes. Sometimes they'd turn out good, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes I didn't know what I was doing. And then I was hungry for sauce, you know, because let's face it, that's our main basic thing, is it spaghetti. And Dad never liked his own mother's sauce. She made a real tart, almost sour tasting sauce. I don't think she ever put any sugar in it.
Tomatoes are
Acidic
anyway.
yeah.
So she used like straight tomatoes.
Yeah, right. And he didn't like my mother's sauce either, although I thought my mom's sauce was better than his mom's sauce, but that's because I grew up on it, I guess. But he wasn't crazy about either recipe. So I just started experimenting with making it, you know, like, well, do I use canned real tomatoes? Do I use tomato puree? Because now in cans they have, you know, they have sauce, puree, chopped, whole. You're bewildered if you don't know what you're doing. But basically that was when we had the store, so I could go down in the store and kind of experiment with different stuff. I don't know, I just would make it, and sometimes we'd like it and sometimes we didn't like it, and I'd say, okay, I got to change this or change that. And then I finally started using the whole tomatoes in a can. that you had to put in the blender to purify, to liquefy them. And I knew you had to put tomato paste to thicken it, because if you didn't put tomato paste, it'd just stay watery. And for years, I made it with those the whole tomatoes that I did in the blender. And then one day I was looking at that blender, and it was full of tomato juice that I had just blended. And I thought, well, they sell tomato juice in the can. Why am I going through this step of liquefying these tomatoes, and then I got to wash that darn blender? I thought, I'm going to try it with the cans of tomato juice and the tomato paste. And in the meanwhile, I had been experimenting with sugar, how much to put in, do you put any in? Well, if you don't put any, it's too tart. Put too much, it's too sweet. So I just trial and error.
You refined it over time.
Yeah, and I finally got it the way I make it now, I don't know how many years ago. And that's the way I've made it ever since. I can tell you the recipe right off my head. So, and if you want to make a double batch or a triple batch or a single batch.
You say the recipe.
Well, okay, for a single batch that I made today, you saute medium onion, chopped onion, and about 1/4 of a cup of olive oil and a tiny bit of salt and pepper. And then you put in a 12-ounce can of tomato paste. Saute that around a little bit. Be careful, it'll burn really fast. You got to put it on low heat and keep stirring it. Then you put in your can of juice. You put in a 12-ounce can of water. I use the same
You
can.
said put in a can of juice. How big is that
That
can?
46-ounce.
Okay, the big one.
46-ounce can of tomato juice, and I always buy a good juice. I don't buy these off-brand stuff. I buy either like Campbell's or Red Gold. I like Red Gold the best for some reason. Let's see, and then you put a 1/3 of a cup of sugar, and then you stir that around, get it all dissolved in there. And did I say the water, the 12-ounce can of water? I used the same can that the tomato paste came in, and I,
that thins it even more.
what?
What's the water do?
You just need a can of water. You need that 12 ounces of water. Otherwise, it gets too thick or something. I don't know. That's the way I finalized my recipe, so that's the way I keep it. And then you bring that up to a boil, and then you have your meat ready, whatever meat you're going to put in it. You can put zitzita. You can make meatballs, which I didn't show you how to do today. I always put loose hamburger, about a pound.
You don't brown it first?
No, I
Put it
do.
in raw.
I put my hamburger in, and I use ground chuck. That's what I like the best. I don't like ground round. I don't like when it just says ground beef.
The chuck is better.
I like the ground chuck. I think it's got the best ratio of fat to it. It's not a lot of fat, but it's enough to give it a good taste. And then I think some kind of pork is essential. If you make it without any pork in it, I don't think it tastes as good.
You almost always put pork in? Mm-hmm. If you're putting zizits in, do you still put the pork in?
Yeah, I still put a piece of pork in. Yeah. And
what kind of pork? Could just
well,
be a pork chop?
it could be a pork chop.
pork
If that's
steak?
all you got. I've been using pork steak a lot lately.
How much will you put in a single batch? Like one big pork steak?
Yeah, you can buy these thick cut pork steaks, like one of those, or two thin cut, anything. Country ribs come in those. I think that's what that might have been today, was country rib, but it didn't have any bone on it. I like it better if it's got a piece of bone. I think it gives the sauce a better flavor. Or just if you got a chunk of, go to the store and you see a little tiny pork roast or something, bring it home, chop it up. But I do saute the pork.
I was going to ask, so you don't put it in raw?
No. But it's not cooked when I put it in. It's
Just
just
kinda browned
browned,
it a little
browned
bit.
off a little bit and put a little salt and pepper on it.
Brown both sides, then put it in the sauce to cook.
Right.
And if you're putting zazits in, do you brown the zazits?
I usually just put the zazits in raw. I don't brown it. Some people do. Some people brown all their meat. Some even do the hamburger. I don't. See, that's just my way.
And then you stir the whole conglomeration and just simmer low.
Simmer on low. Yeah.
And how long is it going to simmer like that?
Well, usually an hour and a half. If you've got a really big pot going, like maybe a double or triple, but I cook it about 2 hours. Takes a little bit longer if you got for it to get the consistency you want. And a lot of it is just you keep stirring it every 10 or 15 minutes, and when you see that it's what you want it to be, then you turn it off.
The
But-
consistency, the thickness,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, right. Because you don't want it to be watery, but
And that raw zazitza will cook in there in an
Oh my,
hour and a half.
oh my gosh. Well, you put a piece of zazitza on the grill, it cooks fast. So if you boil for an hour and a half, you're going to be cooked, you know. So that's the way I make it, and everybody that eats it seems to like it. So
I'm 56. I've never once in my life made sauce.
really?
I've never made
You've
it.
never made it at the cabin?
No. Why would I make it? No, I've never made
Well,
sauce.
you got Sherry to make it. Stephen makes it. Daniel makes it. Who else?
I'd
Well,
like to-
Tim makes it, but I don't know how Tim's
I'd
is.
like to try it sometime and follow your recipe and see if I can do it.
You could do it. I don't see why you couldn't do it. If you want to make a double batch, you just use two cans of paste, 2 cans of juice, 2 cans of water.
You normally put 1 pound of loose hamburger.
Well, if I make a double batch, I'd put a little more. I'd put
Yeah.
a pound
1
of
pound for a single batch, I mean.
Yes.
So double batch would be 2 pounds.
Well, 2 pounds. Sometimes it's a little less, a little more. Don't make any difference. A lot of it is after you get the experience of making it. Like I can just go in there and make it. I don't
Yeah.
measure anything. I don't. You know what I mean? I just know.
Sure. I agree, though, the pork.
The pork just seems to
significant.
have a little bit of sweetness to it or something that just makes it better. I just think it makes it better. So,
flavors it.
Did you ever have anyone try your sauce, like your mother-in-law or someone who explicitly did not like your sauce? Said, "I do not like this."
no. Maybe they didn't like it, but they didn't say it.
I have a vague memory, I'm not sure, but I almost don't remember ever eating a sauce I didn't like. I guess maybe just because I love to eat, but I like Nana's sauce and I
Yeah.
like Grandma's sauce.
Really?
How special that was. And she'd
Sure.
make a huge pot of sauce.
Well, we made it, when was it, last year for Christmas? We made those
Yeah.
noodles. Yeah, that's a lot of work. And she used to make them by hand. We got that machine now that,
Yeah.
that mixes it and extrudes it, and you got to roll that stuff by hand.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I tell people all the time that I think that you may be the best cook on the planet.
Well, I don't
The sauce,
I don't agree with that.
the
But
spadini
yeah,
is over the top, the bruschelloni, the stuffed peppers,
yeah,
the rolled cabbage, just so many things you used to make.
yeah.
Just everything you make.
Well,
is
when
so
you got
good.
6 kids facing you every night and wanting dinner, you better put something on the table. I just taught myself, trial and error. Sam was the worst eater. He would smell the food. I could smack him. And so many
Smell it,
things.
like trying to
Yeah.
decide if does it. Yeah.
And he would not eat stuffed cabbage. He would not eat stuffed peppers. He would not eat this. He would not eat that. Now he
How-
goes to all those foreign countries and
How do you
eats
get
something.
away with that with Dad? Didn't Dad make him eat this stuff?
Well, one time, that's the only time I remember though, was I had made stuffed cabbage rolls. And he was not going to eat them. And Dad said, "You're going to sit there till you eat it." And it was 10 o'clock at night. He was still sitting at the table. And he didn't eat it. I think I finally took it away from him and just gave him a bowl of cereal and told him to go to bed. 'Cause
So he got his way.
What are you going to do? But nobody else was a fussy eater. You were the best eater. You would try anything I put on the table. Now, maybe something you didn't like, but you would at least try it. You were willing to try it. But I don't remember anything you didn't like.
I can't think of much I would not like.
Yeah,
I think
because
I
you-
would eat anything.
yeah,
Green
you-
beans, Brussels
Yeah,
sprouts.
I know. You were the best eater. Yeah.
I still am. I love to eat.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's good. I think that's good that you like everything.
So, I have this impression of you. You're the kind of person that keeps everything in. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
You
Sort
tend
of. Well, I avoid confrontation.
To, yeah,
I do
maybe
not.
that's a good way to say.
I do not like confrontation
So what
with
is
anybody or anything.
so what is that all about? What is
Well, it's just the way I am. I was born that way, I guess. I don't know. I don't think you can change your personality. You're born the way you're going to
so
be.
I think I tend to be that way. I must get it from you.
Well, then how can you be a counselor and listen to all that?
Well, it's not about confronting people.
Well, yeah, you are confronting
I mean,
people.
sometimes it is, but it's like they say an effective salesman. If you ever feel pushy, you're not selling well. So you
Yeah, I
you
can't
learn to
stand.
help
I
you-
can't stand. That's why I put that no solicitor sign on
Yeah.
that door, and it works. I haven't had anybody come.
But the point being, you.
I don't want anybody pushing me to,
Yeah.
you know.
And if you feel pushed,
And I'm a hard person. I can't say no to people. So
because of
if
that inability for confrontation.
right, if they're trying to force me to buy something or whatever, and I don't want to say no to them, well, then what are you going to do? You know, so I don't answer the door, which I'm here alone anyway, and I don't want anybody in my house that I don't know, and I'm not going to open the door. So even the phone, if I don't recognize the phone number, I'm sure I miss a lot of calls because I don't know everybody's phone number. If I don't recognize it, I don't answer the phone.
But I was making a point, which is that if people feel pushed, then you're not selling well. So you help people make the right decision. You lead people. You don't push people. You know? So in counseling, it's a therapeutic relationship, and you're talking to people and trying to encourage them and help them, and ask them questions.
But sometimes you have to confront them and say, why are you treating your wife that? Why are you doing this? At least that's what.
Maybe you'd be a better counselor than me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if some guy and woman come in and she's crying her eyes out and he says, yeah, I've had 16 affairs in our marriage, and I think I'd jump all over that person, you know, or tell her, you're stupid for staying with him. I wouldn't try to get them back together. I couldn't listen to all that.
So the point I was making, though, is you've tended to, so you keep things in. You're not real demonstrative and displaying your emotions. And
Right. Yeah, I'm like that.
do you remember being that way ever since you were a little kid? Or
Oh, yeah.
do you have any sense, you just think it's personality? Do you think it had to do with your family of origin, the way your mom and dad were together? Or?
Well, it used to scare me sometimes if they would fight, yeah. I mean, when I was a little kid. You know, any kid gets scared if they hear a lot of bad words. And
If you had to pick, do you feel like you were closer to your mom or your dad?
oh, my mom, definitely.
So what was the deal with your dad? Was he kind of, did you experience him as being like angry, or were you kind of afraid of him? He'd yell, or
Yeah.
he didn't feel as safe to you, or I mean, was he affectionate? Would he give you hugs and kisses?
No, he was not affectionate.
So it wasn't like that with him. Was it not? No?
But he was nice. I mean, no, there was no big displays of affection in the house. Like your dad, he was kissing me every 2 minutes, you know.
So between the two of them, you mean? There wasn't much affection?
Not that they showed me, you know, no. But I think a lot of the older people were like that.
Sure. Well, plus the dynamics. He's twice her age,
Right.
you know. It's not like she fell in love with him and then they got
Right.
married.
Well, she said when she married him, you know, it was arranged marriage. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, he says, can I marry your daughter? They said, yeah, build her a house, you can marry her. I mean, I don't know if there was any courtship involved at all. I don't know any of that. But, let's see, I lost my, I'm losing my
You
train
were
of
talking
thought.
about the older Italians, how they weren't very affectionate. Or
Yeah. I don't know. That's not what I was going to say, though. But I can't remember now what I was going to say.
Something about how
It's
I
gone.
was saying he's twice as old as her.
Oh, the arranged marriage.
The arranged
Oh,
marriage.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, what she, yeah. When she married him, she did not love him. But she says she did grow to love him. So, I guess after you live with the person long enough and you know that's your life, I mean, you're married, and because
becomes a
at
commitment.
that time there were no divorces like there are now.
There might be a
I mean, there were divorces, but not as prevalent as they are now. I think young people today get married with the notion that, oh, if it don't work, we'll get a divorce. Where in my day, you
wasn't
got,
an option, yeah.
no, you got married, you're married, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people should literally change their vows because they say until death you do you part, and I don't think they mean it at all.
No, it's just
It's
part
very
of the,
cheap.
it's part of the routine of what you say.
Right.
But see, a lot of people do change their wedding vows now. They write their own, or
They should say, this deal's going to
until we have a big fight.
Yeah, as long as I feel good. As soon as I feel bad, I have.
I'm
the
out of
option,
here.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. The world just keeps evolving and it gets nuttier and nuttier all the time. So,
So you don't remember your dad being affectionate or very warm or?
he was okay, but he was not a lovey-dovey, kissy, huggy, you know. It's just the way he was. I don't know. I don't know.
Keeping your emotions in,
Mm-hmm.
the etymology of that, like what was your family like, and
Mm-hmm. I'm the way I am, and that's the way it is. What you see is what you get. That's it. You know? I don't know. But
So I want to ask you about one other part, and if it's inappropriate, just say, or TJ can even edit it. It don't even need to go in, but just from my point of view, Dad was difficult to live with for you in a way, Did you ever feel that way? His anger, his temperament, just a lot of situations.
well, you just learn to live with it, I mean, you either stay or go, so there was no option for me to go, so I just stayed.
Why was there no option?
But he was very loving because I believed my wedding vows, He was a great person. He worked hard. I think part of the time he was the way he was because he did work so hard. He was on the verge of a nervous breakdown half the time. I mean, getting up at 4:30 in the morning and working until 10 o'clock at night and getting up and doing it all over again. He did that for years, keeping food on the the He was
Yeah, I
keeping the
remember when I
bills
was a kid,
paid.
him working 2 and 3 jobs.
Oh, all the time, So,
I remember when he sold fence. I remember when he He worked at that place over on 367.
That was a meat market over there,
Was
yeah.
it a meat fair, or what was that?
Meat fair, and then there was another place over there too, I can't remember the name, that was in that tower.
Yeah.
But the store, the grocery store part was in the bottom. That was one of his part-time jobs after working 8 hours at Del Monte all day. Yeah, he was a hard, he provided as best he could for his family.
The different situations where Dad would have a hard time, where he, Mary Kay got pregnant, situations with Steve, situation with me. And then beyond that, I mean, I remember his difficulty with Mr. Graham, Mr. Worthington.
Well, that was his problem. That wasn't my problem.
Yeah, well, it
You
was
know?
your problem in the
Well,
sense that you're
everybody's responsible for themselves, is the way I feel about it. So, he always got over it.
But there was fallout. I mean, there was fallout for you to live that way, and I guess I always wondered what it was like for you because of this tendency for you to keep everything in,
Oh, I would,
and to try
I'd
to
let him know
to be the
at
peacemaker,
times.
you know?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I was so much a peacemaker, but he knew when he was aggravating me, But,
Do you feel like you could talk to him? Would you
well,
talk?
yeah, sometimes we did. Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think we'd have stayed married 49 and a half years if we didn't get along,
Certainly, but I think that a huge part of that was your compliance.
Well, what was I supposed to do?
Well, all I'm saying is I think that a lot of women would not have.
Well,
because of your temperament.
I
and your
chose
compliance.
to go along.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
yeah.
well,
That
can't change that.
That went a long way toward your contribution to your marriage, and being able to stay and work things out, and hang in there when the going gets tough.
I don't know. I've seen
Probably
people have.
a lot of people in this world, they give up way without putting up with half of what you put up with,
Yeah, that's their choice. I've seen people go through worse, a lot worse.
Yeah.
They beat them up and get drunk and don't work,
Can you
and
imagine?
the families are starving, and your kids are all on drugs, and thank God we didn't have any of that kind of stuff that I know of anyway. Or a womanizer. He was not a womanizer. He was not out chasing. He liked to look at girls, there's no doubt about that. Well, he's only human. I think he was a good man, a good hard-working man, and he loved his family. He just didn't want any waves. He wanted everything smooth all the time. Well, you can't have everything smooth all the time.
That's for sure, yeah.
So, anyway, that's it. That's enough of that. A little bigger than a 5x7
Is it too reflective?
that I used to keep on that table, and Sam wanted it one day, and he said he would take it with him,
That's the one. Huh?
but that he would give it back to me, and I never got it back. And I asked him about it, and he said, well, I don't have it. Yeah, that's my mom and dad's wedding picture.
Isn't that something? So she's 15 in that picture.
Yeah, and he's 30. Want to take a picture of that? Hold me holding the book.
I see your dad because I know him from the pictures, but if I didn't know that was Nana, I don't know if I can see her face. And
Yeah,
that's
she.
her when she was
Well, she was
15.
pretty. She was 15. We're all
Did they
pretty
get-
when we're 15.
Did they get married at Sacred Heart?
Yes.
Wow.
They got married, I think, in St. Louis by a justice of the peace, and then went to DuQuoin and got married by Father Hafner in
Well, why
Sacred
the
Heart Church.
Justice of the Peace? Because they were both from DuQuoin, so why the necessity to
I
go-
think Nana was living in St. Louis. They were still living in St. Louis at that time, or I don't know. I think I heard that once, but maybe that's not true. I don't remember.
I'm not
Because she said they got married by this Justice of the Peace, but they could not live together because that was not
sure. Hadn't been endorsed by the church.
by the church.
Finalized.
Yeah, they did not live together till they. But I don't know why they were in St. Louis.
I don't remember that story at all.
I remember hearing that, but
And
I
why,
don't.
why have this civil ceremony if they're not even going to live together until they're married in the eyes of God and the church? I wonder why they did that. I never heard
I think
that.
maybe it might be when you get your license, but that couldn't be because I think their license is in Pinckneyville.
I'm not sure, but their marriage license may be in that book.
Really?
I think your dad's death certificate's in there, different things. That's a potpourri of a Licata stuff. When Nana died, you know, these boxes of papers, I kind of just assembled whatever the main papers I could see. Let me take a quick look.
Find my dad's death certificate if you can. I want to see if it says.
Look at that.
Oh, that's in front of the store. Sammy was 6 months old. It was a tomboy store. Yeah, that's the only two babies he saw was Sam and Big Tony.